Okay, I think we're getting there. Yes, I think we've successfully done that. Very good. I somewhat know what I'm doing. Successfully done that. Okay, cool. And I'll let the Discord know. Cool. Waldo, you should automate the exports to a separate YouTube channel like Countdown Archives. Oh, Waldo, but that would require like more than 3 seconds of work, and I'm terrible. So, oh, anyway,
It's true, isn't it?
it is. It's too true.
Any amount of effort is too much effort when it comes to like archiving videos and shit.
I fucking hate it. I don't know how people do it. I mean, I guess if it's your full time job, I get it, but fuck. All right, here we go. I'll kick us off, North. 1 second. So I recorded a piece a couple of weeks ago. I've actually been rather sick for the last 2 weeks, guys, and been struck down with the flu, but I've bounced back and I'm good now. And just before I got sick, I recorded a great big 5-year anniversary edition of Countdown with a lot of people's favorite callers from over the years. You heard it in this episode earlier. You got your hunks, you got your ales, you got your FAQs and your mics, and everyone was there, and it was great. And we had a bit of a tongue-in-cheek laugh, and I said, look, there's one notable name whose absence from this call, like you can almost hear the silence. And it kills me that this person is not on this call because I didn't invite them on this call. And the only reason being, as much as I love the man to death and he knows I love him to death, is that we were worried that he would consume somewhere in the realm of 75 to 95% of the airtime once he started talking. And I thought, you know what, I'll just have him on separately for the 5-year anniversary show. And here he is, my great friend North. Mate, how are you?
I'm doing well. I think I've, as much as I've earned that, we dig our own holes. I always want the chance to be better.
You
I'm
would know, but
offended a little bit, but I'll get
don't.
over it. I'll
I'll
get
take a
over it.
little bit of offense. That's fine. I deserve that. But I'm sure you lightly understand where I was coming from
No, no,
on
no.
that
I,
one.
I, of course, you know, we make our own beds and we have to lay in them
That's the
after
one.
all.
But the
So,
people still wanted you, mate. The people were calling out for you in that call, and they're calling out for you again now while we're recording this one. So I'm glad that there's always going to be that demand. And I thought, you know what? There's no better way to do it than basically to sit down one on one with you. I always love catching up, and it's good when we leave a couple of months of breathing space between our chats because it gives us time to sort of catch up and really reflect on a lot of things that have happened over the last few weeks or months. And I just want a bunch of North takes, basically. Look, whether they're freezing cold or, steamingly hot pile of North takes, either way, I just want to hear what you've got to say about a bunch of things. And there is a bit to talk about. So, buckle up, guys, for the next couple of hours. We've got our, amazing friend North, who's always so fun, whether you agree or disagree with him. And guys, as you're watching live, you know the drill. If you want to call in live and ask questions of North or I, you're more than welcome to. So, mate, let's kick it off. And like I said, it's going to be very casual. This is, I had the pleasure of having a pub lunch with Hunk the other day, and we sat down and we chatted some Diablo 4, we chatted some gaming news, some Season of Mastery 2 and all that shit. And I just thought, it's always such a fun vibe. Let's do the same thing with North. We're at the virtual pub here. I'm not grilling you, mate. Let's just shoot the shit. And I just thought I'd kick off. I do think it would be remiss not to kick off with, as casual as we're being, there's still being a relatively hard-hitting bit of news recently with the ban waiver that came out for the bots recently. And we saw the big blue post from our friend Agrend, who came out and said 120,000 accounts, botting accounts, had been banned from Wrath of the Lich King Classic. They are gone. They are kaputski. And Blizzard has done the deed there to try and make life a little bit easier for Wrath players, because I believe, and I was definitely one of the voices pushing this forward amongst a plethora of players that were doing the very same, that, the bot problem had once again become ridiculous in Wrath Classic, particularly if you were stepping into Battlegrounds. It was a fucking joke. People saw DKs for days. They were all running on top of each other, clearly following automated scripts. This wasn't, the instance where the old, Blizz can do the old, oh, how do we know that they're not actual players? Like, a joke's a joke. We know. Do something about it. And so something was done, but, as is wont to do with Blizzard, the reaction was mixed. I think the mixed reaction is more than fair in this particular regard. Look, you're always going to get the yeah, thank you. We're glad you did something, but, and there's always a but attached. And the but was, this should have come sooner. How did we get to 120,000 accounts? Those are just the ones you banned. How many more are there? Blah, 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 blah. So I've set you up, mate. I've lofted one over the plate. I just want to hear your reaction to the news and what your thoughts are on the whole thing in general.
I mean, I don't have good insight into exactly what their affairs look like in terms of the resources that they have available, right? Obviously, we have long parroted, I think, what Blizzard has shared, in that they are sort of undermanned in that sort of affair. So they have to do it in these big waves, or they want to do it in these big waves because they're a lot showier, they look nicer. In reality, do they do all that much? Because has the damage been done over the months and months and months that they're active? Is this going to really solve things? Because if you go into those lower level BGs again, or at least in the screenshots that I've seen on Classic and in various Discords, in the Classic subreddit and various Discords, it seems like the problem's still there. I mean, even with, reestablishing the level limit, that doesn't really seem to stop them. So yeah, I mean, I don't know about it being, I'm not sure why people are mixed on it, because this is kind of just what we maybe should be expect. Is it realistic to expect anything different at this point? I don't think that's like a doomer outlook.
Well, but doesn't that convey what you just said though? Doesn't that convey a little bit of complacency in terms of? And I've been guilty of this in the past as well, mate. But our expectations have been set so low from a customer service perspective that we've become complacent in terms of what we actually expect from Blizzard. Do you know what I mean? We do the shoulder shrug.
Yes, but what does that speak to, right? Like, in terms of us accepting what is reality. Blizzard is not Activision, and the corporate structure around Blizzard is the thing that controls whether or not they're going to, hire for customer service roles and really have a, I lost a reply code alpha yesterday because I looted the Algalon chest. And I looted everything out of it because my RC loot council had auto-looted everything, but it doesn't loot quest items. It doesn't like to loot quest items. And so I do this every week. I loot everything, and then I hand it out, and then we decide who's going to get the reply code, then we give it to the raider. The chest disappeared. Less than 5 minutes. Chest disappeared, item with it. Didn't loot it, nothing happened, completely gone. Obvious bug, I lost an item. I send a message to customer support, and it's very clear that customer support doesn't even know what's happening. Because in the course of this conversation, they give me they say, oh, I see that your character has completed the quest. They haven't. And my other characters have completed the quest, but it's only the 10-man version. So that item hasn't completed on any character on my entire account, first of all. Second of all, I was just telling the GM that the item rotted, and I was very clear about it. I was very clear, line by line. 1, this is the situation. 2, this is what happened. 3, this is what I would like. And still, they didn't. And clearly because most of it's automated, or the people don't, they aren't familiar with the game at all, or obviously they don't play the game. But even their familiarity is extremely low because they are in a sort of corporate malaise where they just try and get the cheapest amount of labor possible, automate the most amount of things, so that they don't have to care. And is our uproar going to do anything about it?
Oh, no, I agree. It's not.
Our uproar is engagement for them. We are creating more discussion
I agree.
around Blizzard. If you really wanted to change something, you would stop interacting with their game. You'd stop buying their games if you honest to God cared enough. And I don't know if that's an indictment of the people who play and consume. We like the game. We love the game. We don't like some of the things around it that are shitty and suck, but we don't have control of that, nor do the people that we know that work in the game have control of that, because it's just, ambiguous corporate overlords, because in reality, the corporate structure is, I don't know, too beholden to the people who own the company, right? And so the executives have control and voting shares that normal employees do not, because capitalism is odd. Right?
I'm with you.
I don't know that there is a solution.
I agree with you in that, like, I think we've said, even you and I in past conversations on the show have said something along the same lines, where it's like, it's all well and good for even a user like me, get as mad as you want, but at the end of the day, nothing's going to be done about it. And quite frankly, at the end of the day, the joke is on the consumer, because you're the one that's still subscribing. You can piss and shit and fart into the wind as much as you want, scream into the wind, but nothing is getting changed. And as long as you continue to pay that subscription fee, truly the joke is on you. And a lot of listeners aren't going to enjoy hearing that, because it does sound scummy that, well, hang on, if we're getting a subpar service for our money, we have every right to be angry about that. Yes, you do. Unfortunately, the anger leads to no change. And at the end of the day, what do I keep saying at the end of the day? And ultimately, if you wind up continue to pay your subscription fee voluntarily, you've basically soft signed the contract that has said you are, to a certain extent okay with this, because you continue to pay to play. And I'm guilty of this as well. But to take us off on a slight tangent, I had a line in the sand created for me in the past, 2 weeks. My guild fell victim to the faction transfer monster. The monster, this is the boogeyman. I really feel that, to a certain regard, you can tell me if this analogy is fucking terrible, but, faction transfers to me are the boogeyman, because I feel like the players are shouting at Blizzard, the parent, saying, the boogeyman's under my bed, the boogeyman's under my bed, or the boogeyman's in my closet. And the parents saying back to us, the boogeyman doesn't exist, don't be silly, go to sleep. But that's the players saying, faction transfers are going to ruin some servers, please don't do it. And then it happens anyway. But this is one where, and I know that you're going to say this, I'm going to beat you to it, mate, but it truly is a damned if you do, damned if you don't moment for Blizzard, because so many fucking players were kicking down their doors screaming for this service. Please give us faction transfers. I saw them everywhere. Twitter, Reddit, fucking all over the content creator fucking, secret, super secret, don't say anything Discord. Please give us faction transfers. And I was like, in my heart of hearts going, God, I hope they don't do this, because it will really ruin the last servers that have some semblance of an opposite faction on it. Of course I knew they were going to do it, because, it was a fait accompli. And of course the thing that followed was my server, I think, was one of a couple that did blow up, because, Yojamba, the OCE server, we only had 30% alliance or whatever. It's drastically decreased, I think, already. Maybe it's still about the same, I don't know. But big guilds have left. My guild left. And I just said, I am not rewarding Blizzard with an extra $70 on top of my subscription fee for blowing up my server. I feel like they introduced a service that they knew would have a negative impact on some servers' climates. They did it anyway because, again, the demand was too great, and it does make them some decent levels of profit. And I was just part of the fallout, quite frankly. And so I've elected to vote with my wallet and say I won't be paying for those extra services to quote unquote fix the game for me. So I have left my guild, and I'm basically not raiding anymore in Wrath, because that's what I want to do. But the reason I'm saying all of this is that's a step that, when it comes to the subscription fee, many people are not willing to take, because they still want to play the game. And that's fine. I'm not asking for people to cancel WoW. That's, I've not canceled WoW over the years. I've come to a certain point where I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever, shoulder shrug, I'll keep playing the game. But I think people are still within their rights to get upset, if that makes sense.
Of course they are. I am confused why it manifests from an announcement like this, right? Because why is there not more of a, why is the outcry not? It just seems to me that there is a path forward, and maybe people do not share my vision for the path forward. The path forward would be real stakeholder roles for the employees at Blizzard, right? It would be that they have ownership of the things that they produce, the products of their labor they in part own, right? So, and they the people that are in charge that they elect, right? And so that they have a real role as stakeholders, and they aren't just talked down to. So if they want, with the money that, the excess money, from the fruits of their, efforts, if they wanted to invest more in, customer service and, protections for the players so that the, quality of life in the game went up, and if they could, have more people to try and promote server health and promote services that promote server health, or any number of things, it should be in their bucket. But I never hear that mentioned. I hear, oh my god, they should just do everything perfectly, that costs them money when the shareholders don't want it. That's never going to happen. You could change the structure of the company, that could happen, and then you could have the game developers incentivized to care about their game, because they already do. And if they have the control, it's not the marketers, it's not the executive, it's not the the ambiguous authority at the top, then that has that sort of stewardship role. I think that would be a really good move forward. I don't even think that's realistic, though. I think that's a more realistic thing than just kind of shouting into the void and being like, why doesn't Blizzard do the right things? Because a lot of time they do, and then you see the places where they don't. And a lot of the time it's not even the team itself, it's the people who are sort of tangential to the team that make these kinds of decisions, and then that promote this kind of I don't know, like the sort of the shitty atmosphere sometimes that can be pushed for whatever agenda. People say corporate agenda, you can say whatever agenda you want. It seems like shouting into the void. So I'm not saying that they aren't in their rights to, and that they shouldn't be upset, but I don't see where it gets anyone if there is not a concerted effort to enact change.
Yes, if there's no huge coordinated effort, it absolutely can never come together. Yeah. I mean, basically, I don't mean to joke about this. I'm not joking about this, but like, in the absence of some form of ridiculously large-scale virtual unionization of WoW players, it's never going to happen.
I mean, yeah, that's. I mean, and that would be the real solution. Is WoW players to form a union, or Blizzard
you turn
and the
into fucking
team to form
you turn into Jimmy Hoffa.
Union.
Did you hear that? You turn into the Jimmy Hoffa of the WoW Players Union.
One could hope.
Find you buried in the football field. Mate, look, one last point on this one, and I don't want to get bogged down too much on the negative stuff to kick off with. We'll get to the fun stuff soon. Yeah. I know it's a bummer. I just wanted to get it out of the way because it was the most newsworthy. But just last point.
It is a bit of a bummer.
It is. And I can hear you that it is a bit of a drag, and I want to put a smile on your dial, mate. I'm not here to bum you out. But
that's fair.
Just to do a service to the news, one last point on this, just bringing it back to the bots. I think that I ask this because I genuinely want to know what you make of this, because you do see these comments lying around the subreddits. Do you feel... How do you sort of wrestle with this mentally when you see the positive action by Blizzard being... a fucking 120,000 accounts were banned. They have moved forward and actively done something that would seemingly hurt their bottom line. And they're saying to the players, look, we are trying to make the game better for you. Yes, we've banned all these players that would have otherwise been subscribing to us. That's how much we care about you. But then the obvious alternative argument that you see to that around the traps is that on the face of it, that might seem like, a positive move by Blizzard. However, there might be a more insidious dark side to it, in that they did bring the announcement with a week's worth of notice for people to get their 55 DKs up and running before they couldn't create them anymore. The end of the quarter is literally this week. So the timing of it all seems to have been something that could have still somehow boosted their quarterly figures, in like, even though they've eradicated 120,000 accounts, how much more...
You're saying those people that are incentivized to buy
they basically get another account up and running before the end of the quarter that generates a little boost to the bottom line. Now, I'm not trying to go full fucking grassy knoll on you here, but I think it's something worthy of putting to you and asking what you thought of like comments like that.
I mean, do we how unreasonable do we think that is realistically? I don't you were walking into it and
Yeah.
you're like, okay, I'm not crazy, but that's not unreasonable at all. Why is that unreasonable even in the slightest?
I don't think it's unreasonable, and that's why I'm like one of the best comments, one of the most succinct comments I've read about this whole thing, just botting in general through this whole news is like, people who are of the belief that Blizzard well and like truly in their heart of hearts wants to eradicate bots from the game. You're asking Blizzard to spend money to lose money, which is a reality that's never going to come into existence. And I just think that that's a really, apt way to put it. We're asking them to spend money to lose money. Bots will always be a thing in a game if it makes them money. So when I do the sort of, quotation marks, conspiracy theory of they'll actually wind up making extra money out of this, even though they banned 120,000 accounts. As you say, I think there's meat on the bones, and I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that.
And at what life cycle, right? Like the average, when is this average account subbed, right? Like, did they, like, we don't have the numbers in front of us. If we were to have the numbers, what would make more sense? Is it after the majority of these accounts just resubbed, or maybe 50% more, 50% or more just resubbed? Are they then forcing an extra, like basically a full month for free? Or are they juicing that out? We have no way of knowing, obviously, but why wouldn't they, right? These people are breaking their terms of service. They can look at that. They can do that. They could bin max that. Why wouldn't they, right? It's just free money essentially for people who are breaking the rules, right? I don't think it's wild at all.
Yeah.
I think it's perfectly fucking reasonable for that to be the case. And that just goes back to what you want, right? Like, and the fact that it's so unreasonable. It's like, well, they're never going to spend money to make money. I don't think that that's necessarily
they're not going to spend money to
situation.
lose money. Yeah.
Sorry, you should spend money to lose money. I don't think that's the whole situation, because I think, having good stewardship of the game where it impacts, like the ecosystems of the game, I think that is a real important thing to try and preserve. But in Wrath, to be honest, doesn't fucking matter. None of these bots, they don't fucking matter. They really do not impede the vast majority of player experience. They don't. In a lot of cases, they make it better. Because that's been a point. Cheaper mats.
That's been a point that I think our friend Mez, who got hit with the ban hammer the other day due to reasons. Mez, our friend Mez in the Discord pointed this out recently. Saying the same thing, North, and I think it's a worthy point. Going like, people. Now, I don't necessarily share this opinion, I should say, but people do love to bitch about bots whilst basking in the glory of the environment that bots have created for them, being lower price mats, less time farming, blah, 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 blah. I personally disagree with that take, but that's only because, like, I'm an old school purist. I'm like, I'll go out and farm my gold and do the thing, and if mats are higher, then so be it. That's the bar that has been set. The high jump bar
I agree,
has been lifted.
For the vast majority of players, right? It's just not. It's not a big deal at all. So, like, agree, having this, like waving this flag and being very upset by it. Like, there are reasons to be upset. Is it because Blizzard's not doing a good enough job in bots in the version of the game that is so far removed from any kind of world presence, of any kind of resource-based anything? Is that really the thing that we're mad about? Is that it? Is that the thing we're angry about? Why are we not more angry about locks not getting infernal resets? I feel like we should be angrier about that because it's weird, right? Like, that's weird and bad. In like 99% of cases, it's just weird and bad. It is obviously it's a practical loss of damage for a very, very strong class. Yes, absolutely. But it's just inconvenient for the people who care. And so you're just forcing inconvenience on obviously a small subset of players, but every single lock feels that damage when they're running around Ulduar, and they just can't use their buttons, and every other class can use all their buttons, but they can't. That's dumb, right? Like, why are we not more angry about that than the bots? It's like, ooh, they didn't do a good enough job with bots. When do you even see the impact of bots? When? Where?
Well, but wouldn't the counterpoint be, and I'm not going to get too riled up about this one, but wouldn't the fair counterpoint that to be to that the effects are unseen, and unseen effects are as much of a concern as seen effects?
Well, okay, right. If a tree falls in a forest, right, and literally no one has ever documented in the history of ever having heard the sound that comes from the falling tree, Did it really make a sound? Not really. No. Right? Because
I'm not
needs to be
nearly. I'm not
interpretable.
high
It needs to
enough.
be, you need
I'm
to
not
be
high
able to
enough for this
apprehend the
conversation.
damage. Right? Like, what is damaged?
No,
give
I know
give
what
me
you're saying.
one concrete thing that bots make worse that more than half of the player base deals with even once a month.
I will leave that to the listeners to have that ferment in their head. I don't want to go too deep down this path, but
That's fair.
I'll leave you with one funny analogy I've just come up with, mate. On the bot thing, we also talk about not only the price of mats, but also obviously, well, people are dealing with them in battle. To be fair, mate, to counterpoint, the BG thing is, they've killed BGs. To be fair,
they have killed lower level BGs. That's a fact. I would wager that, and that's why I phrased specific. That's why I didn't say name me one thing that any player deal. Of course, people deal with it, but do you think even half of the player base goes into a low level BG more than once a month? Probably not.
I know what you mean. Yeah. But
right. So it does affect things. It does affect things, but it is so minuscule. Right. Whereas like what percentage of the population, active population, plays Warlock? Right. A lot. Right. Like a lot of fucking people play Warlock, and every single time you kill a fucking boss, you encounter the thing where everyone else gets to have their fucking cake and eat it too, and you can't because fuck you. Like that. Fair enough. To me is a much bigger problem. But
last point on this situation, then we'll turn to much chirpier things. But I'm just sort of reminded of, I bring up the mat costs and the BGs and everything, but then also there's the tie-in obviously with gold buying and their relationship with bots. And we talked about players loving to bitch about bots but enjoying the low mat prices. We talk about players bitching about bots, and again I think Mez brought this one up, and yet they love buying gold and going to their GDKPs and whatnot. Like, it's all fun and games, enjoying what the bots give you, but then turning around and bitching about the bots. It's my bad analogy. I actually think it's a brilliant analogy. But anyway, I'll give you a quote from the greatest fucking stage play ever written in my mind, even though it's a film, it was written as a stage play. Colonel Nathan Jessup from A Few Good Men saying, "I have neither the time nor the inclination to explain myself to a man who rises and sleeps under the blanket of the very freedom that I provide and then questions the manner in which I provide it," which to me is like the person bitching about the bot and the bot biting back. So you hate me, but you love everything I fucking bring you.
Well, for sure, but that's you hate capitalism, but you have an iPhone. Like, haha, yeah, like that's the gotcha. You can be in a thing and criticize the way that it exists.
The quote?
You can participate,
yet you choose to participate
when
in society.
It's the only thing that you can do, right? Are you in a GDKP? Are you not buying gold in a GDKP? How the fuck are you doing that? No one can do that if not unless you're leading it and stealing money from the entire run by having a 30% cut, and then 30% cut of what? Of bot gold anyway. So like everyone's fucking in that shit. Everyone's in the swamp at that point. There's no one that's participating in GDKPs on a regular basis that either that really aren't involved in that sort of the swamp if they're getting any kind of real gear, right? Because this shit like a flare drops in a run. A flare of the heavens drops in a run. It goes for gold cap like every time.
Or several gold caps.
14,000 gold.
Yeah.
That's not normal play. You're not like, oh well, yeah, that guy, he goes to a lot of GDKP. No. How many fucking GDKPs per week do you think he's going to? He can afford 200,000 gold per item.
He really loves the game and GDKPs, bro.
And bro, he's just farming. He's just mining a lot of Serenite, bro. He's out there. He's doing his dailies. He's doing his dailies on 18 different characters every day. Like, oh my god, what a gamer! Like, like, come on, let's be real.
All right. Look, let's put a smile on that face. I apologize, man. I feel bad for starting off with the negative vibes, and I don't mean to hurt you, brother. But let's get to the fun stuff. Look, I mean, whether it is the fun stuff, it's at least a little bit of a change in direction. Let's talk about TOTC. Look, it is conceivably right around the corner. People are saying it's probably only 8 weeks away or what have you. Who knows? It can't be too far off. I'm all good because I know nothing about TOTC, but I was talking to some people recently, and there are.
Wait, what are you calling it?
Isn't it Trial of the Crusader?
It's Trial of the Grand Crusader.
No, but I've
This is
heard both.
TOGC.
I've heard Trial of the Crusader and Trial of the Grand Crusader. Which is it? What's the deal?
I have only ever heard it called TOGC. It technically is TOTGC because Trial of the Grand Crusader. Right.
Okay, my bad.
But no one has ever. I've never heard anyone call. I've only ever heard it called TOGC. That's interesting.
Okay, no, that'll be my fuck up. Trial of the Grand Crusader, right?
I mean, it could be. I'm not sure. I'm not telling you your business. That's just the only thing that I've ever heard.
Believe me, never back one of my arguments when it comes to WoW. I don't know fucking shit. But anyway, people are, I don't know if concerned is the right word to use, but people have been pointing this out for months. You pointed this out months ago before the game came out, going, that Crusader patch is a little bit of a rough one. Not a whole lot comes with it. Obviously they tried to make Ulduar beefier, maybe in anticipation of what was coming with the Grand Crusader patch. Are you like, again, I don't want to use that word worried because I feel like it's a lame word to use, but do you have any are you tilting your head at all when you stare at the upcoming patch, or how do you feel about it?
So I actually think the biggest issue is going to be sort of the one that they have incurred as a result of making the Ulduar gear better, because a lot of this gear from Ulduar, take a look at and I think this is even before the swap, but a lot of the gear from Ulduar stays the best. So an item like Petrified Ivy Sprig from 10 man, even from 10 man Freya, that is BIS through POGC on pretty much every caster. Flare of the Heavens, still BIS on pretty much every single caster. Conductive Seal, still pretty much BIS on every single caster. Pharaoh's Gloves, I think, are essentially the same as the very best as every single caster. And so you have this very weird situation where you're going to have to doing both. And I think I've heard previously that they want to do so that you can only do in the way that you could in ICC, that you can only do either heroic or normal of each 10 and 25. Before, in this instance, you did normal 10, heroic 10, normal 25, heroic 25. So you did 4 lockouts. And the only reason you really had to go back to Ulduar because the gear was worse. I think you could go back for Flare. I think Flare might have still been important back then for casters. But it really was for Valeniers. And people weren't even, back in the day, they weren't even as aggressive about it. They didn't do that as much, at least from what I can remember. We would still want to do that. So people are still going to do that, obviously. That's a huge thing to be doing. Everyone and their mother wants a Valenier. And so that's still going to be happening. So I worry, what does that look like for players having to do all of that content? That looks really rough, because when you are talking about when TBC got a little annoying for a lot of raiders, it was because they had to be doing grolls every week, and they had to be doing a lot of tier 5 bosses, and they had to be and that was in tier 6, that was in Black Temple. You still needed stuff from other bosses. And so that was a little weird. And that kind of sucked. And obviously it's the same way in Classic, where it's like you have to go do Ragnaros, and they didn't hold our hand on that. They were just like, okay, it's tough, tough luck, do MC every week. So I worry about that, though, because these are longer raids. These are harder raids as well. So I wonder if they're going to unlock the teleporter from the very start. I think that could be a very good change. I think if they don't do that, it's going to look very weird, and it's going to burn out a lot of players. I think the raid itself is actually underrated.
Okay.
All things considered, I think that people are more willing to be angry about it because of the fact that it's less cool. It's definitely less cool than Ulduar. It's less cool than ICC, but I think it's probably going to be a way better patch than Nax. There's no way
I'm into the concept of just the old, like the Final Fantasy 14 style of just you zone in and there's the fucking boss. You know what I mean? Like trash is fine and everything. I'm not saying delete trash from MMOs, but like, yeah, I do enjoy that way of doing things as well, where it's just like, there's the boss. If you wipe, it's okay. Like, it's just you and the boss most of the time.
Well, here's the issue. How familiar are you with the OGC?
0. I've never run it in my life.
Okay.
And by the way, mate, turns out we were the rare instance. Turns out we were both right. Trial of the Crusader is the 10 man, and Trial of the Grand Crusader is the 25 man. I'm being told by everyone.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Actually, what I'm seeing on Wiki, because I looked at this, Trial of the Grand Crusader is the heroic mode.
No, sorry. Yes, I'm reading that as well. I've got people saying the same thing. Yes.
So it's the 10 and the 25. It's the heroic version, the 10 and the 25. Whereas Trial of the Crusader is just the normal version.
Gotcha.
So part of the special mechanic, there are cloaks in this instance. There are cloaks that are higher level than everything else. The item level at the highest is 258, I believe. The cloaks are, if I'm not mistaken, they're 277 item level. So there's sort of a heroic sort of hard mode item, right? If I'm not mistaken, it could be 272. So how do you spell Sylvanas, man?
Sylvanas.
I'll figure out this item level in a second. But these cloaks can only be acquired, very, very oddly, by completing the instance. And I could be wrong on this. It's possible that I'm wrong. I will entertain the idea that I could be wrong. But I believe it's when you do not wipe at all. That is 90% of what I remember. It might be like that it's like 5 wipes or something that you get, but I'm pretty sure it's 0 wipes. I'm 99% sure that it is 0 wipes, and that's the only means of obtaining the best cloak. And it drops 1 each week. And it's 1 of 4, I believe. And they're just insane. They're really, really good for some classes. They're best through ICC because they are insanely, insanely good. I don't know if they're actually best through ICC, but I mean they're extremely close because the stuff from I believe it's the same item level. I believe it's the exact same item level. I could be wrong. It could be like 2 below or something. It is 2 below. So it is 272, the stuff. And it's each of the faction leaders. So it's Sylvanas' cunning, Varys' dexterity, Varian's furor, Jaina's radiance, shit like this. Cool items and cool looking cloaks as well, but extremely good. All of them have like fucking red sockets. They're juice beyond belief. They're fucking crazy. Okay. And you need to not die. Okay? So that's the whole, I think that adds a little bit of tension to the raid where it didn't previously exist. So that's the new Algalon thing. That's the, okay, you can rot this, and that's by wiping it all. So that's interesting. I don't know if I love that mechanic though. I'll be honest.
Okay, so let me ask you. Where I'm trying to just pick. You might have made it very obvious, and I haven't fucking been able to read you. But where do you lie on the decision now? Because I remember what we were saying months ago before the game came out when this was announced. But where do you lie on the decision now that Blizzard made to get rid of the ability to do all of the lockouts, and now I believe it's just do your 10 and your 25 and that's it, as opposed to 2 instead of 4 or whatnot. You'll correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't know if they've said I think they said that they were planning on doing that. I don't know if they've confirmed that. Have they?
Well, they did it with Nax, right? No, wait.
Well,
I'm getting that wrong.
Nax never had heroic. So the first instance they got,
exactly.
the reason why this is fucking the way that it is, quick history thing, TOGC was the first instance that ever introduced heroic. And then in ICC, they were like, ugh, this whole do normal and then do heroic, that sucks. We're going to make it 1 lockout.
Maybe they said they were thinking about it, but they've definitely talked about it, because we've talked about it on the show.
Yes,
so I can't remember if it's been
they
hard
made a post about
in.
it. They made a post that that's what they thought that they were doing, or we spoke to Agron, or something along those lines occurred.
Because Booth was in the Discord.
I think it's the right thing.
Booth was in the Discord the other day. Yeah. And well, he actually disagrees, and this is what I want to ask you about. Booth, please don't kill me if I get this wrong. I think Booth was sending the message that this could be a decision that we applauded at the time, but may come to regret. In such a quiet patch, having less to do could actually fuck us, and Blizzard may actually want to allow us to do everything. I personally disagree with that. But I mean, I'm not rating, so what does it matter what I care? But I think that
it's easy. It's easy when you have no stake.
Yeah, exactly. Right? When you're not fucking doing it, doesn't matter. But I agree with what I think you're about to say, North. Is I still think that limiting it to like, hey, here's a 10-man lockout, here's a 25-man lockout, then you can go play other games, is a good thing, as opposed to sort of creating the feel that you have to kind of do 4 instead of 2. But I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think it's the same issue that you run into with, in part, what I think is the most dangerous change from Ulduar. The 10-mans matter too much.
Yeah.
That
people
sucks.
have been saying it. Yeah.
It sucks. It sucks how much the 10-mans matter, in my opinion, because it's really, especially because some of the contents, and specifically, it sucks how much the 10-mans matter, given how comp-reliant Algalon is. So given that Algalon is actually kind of complicated and needs a decent comp because you want the Shadow Priest or a Rogue or like a Shaman or something to soak the Big Bang, it's a little weird that it has such good gear and it has like BIS pieces that pretty much everyone needs. That is a weird dynamic because it means then you're forced to running it. Whereas before it's like, oh, okay, well, this is a cool thing. If people want to do different levels of content, it's kind of like, okay, well, this is your Karazhan, right? Like you do the 10-man version, you get good gear, that's fun, right? Like that's fun, that's fine, that's great. But now it's like you are trapped in this eternal, and especially, I mean, I guess I'm in a better guild, so that's kind of part of it, but like I am trapped in the hell of organizing a Gorillion 10 mans every week because we need more Nebula mans and we need more Dark Matters, right? And we need more Meteorite crystals. And there's no
for Meteorite crystals for the hack. What did you read about the thing, or you know about the thing?
No. But what thing?
Was it Meteorite crystals? It's someone's using, I think it's Meteorite crystals, in conjunction with another item that is resetting weapon swing timers, that is increasing DPS. Let me find the fucking ridiculous post about this. Hang on, I'll look it up on my phone. I'm not being rude. It was in the content creator Discord.
Their scientists never thought to consider if they should.
Yeah, surely you've heard about this.
They were too preoccupied with whether they could.
Oh, fuck. All right, so let me keep you going while I look for this. Well, let me weave in this to your answer, because you started talking about Algalon and the difficulty and everything, and how 10-man has become actually weirdly very important. How do you feel about everyone's buzzing about a potential nerf to Ulduar because, hey, it's a foregone conclusion. That's what Blizzard does. They nerf when we go into the next phase. But then obviously we had so much work put into this version of Ulduar that we got, and Blizzard talking it up themselves, going, we want people to spend a lot of time here. Yeah, so I'm like, number one, do you think we'll get one? And number two, whether or not you think we'll get it, do you think it should be done? Because I don't think it should be nerfed, but I want to hear from you.
No, it shouldn't be done at all. This makes no sense to be done. Do we have the increased item level, right? Like that is your nerf. That is such a fundamental nerf. You can 2-heal Mimron. You can probably 1-heal Mimron. A lot of these fights, the things that were difficult about them were not. It's not retail. This is not Painsmith. Okay, you're not dodging 50 million things, with the exception of Mimron Phase 4. And Mimron Phase 4 is a joke because you can do it with 5 people. Right, so it doesn't really, like, nothing is so fundamentally difficult that it really has these checks that are anything other than numbers games, right? So Algalon week 1 was difficult. Why? Because your tank was getting absolutely, fucking smashed. His teeth were just getting smashed in every 2 seconds, right? That's a lot less true when you have all of the gear, or even a lot of the gear. That's less true, and it becomes less true every week as you get more and more. Yogg 0, right? As much as that is one of the, it has some real checks in it. It has some real finessing with the ads in the last phase. But like most of it's numbers, right? If you can burn the boss, if you have enough damage to burn the boss, you can just burn the boss before the first beacons even come out, or before they really matter. So you just have your tank out on the wall with all the ads, and he walls, and you kill the boss before it matters, right? It's not. You have the nerfs. The nerfs are the items. And I think that is a very interesting dynamic. I think that's a way better way of approaching nerfs, is having the items be strong enough that you can really feel the progression, and the progression puts you in. It's what happens in retail, right? In retail, the reason why things are hard initially is because the numbers are, it's tuned to be very, very difficult with that amount of gear. And then you feel the change. You feel how much stronger you really become, in part because this stuff that was used to be very hard is much easier. And so I think we see that in a lot of things. Like my GDKP, when we joke, we call it the Sigma run, because it was, it was just a terrible fucking run. It was a terrible run, and I would just make jokes about it because, it couldn't kill anything, because, try as I might, it was a Tuesday run, and most people, they do the raids on Tuesdays with guilds. And so I just have all the stragglers, and not even most of my guildies weren't even coming. I had maybe 4 or 5 guildies in this 25-man run. And we regressed week on week, and we stopped killing some hard modes because we had some call outs, and it was just, I thought it was, a lost cause. But we got a couple of players in that had decent amount of gear, and then we just one-shot basically everything. Even like, we then didn't kill Algalon because the dads were tired, and we, we're kind of just chilling. We had 30 minutes left on the attempts, and we got him to 9%, which is 6% away from actually sending him into the void. But we were performing worse poll over poll, so we were like, okay, nope, it's fine, we'll just do it next week. And then we came back next week, and we had some trouble on some bosses because people are still a bit boomed. But we one shot Algalon in my GDKP that was famously terrible, right? So, and that was because of the gear. That was because our tanks could survive, right? Like really without much healer intervention, the healers didn't have to play that well, and that's because our DPS could die and we would still have the damage to make the check. Whereas on week 1 of Algalon, you have one person dead. If they're not rezzed, you're just going to hit and rage.
Can I say I've never felt more seen on my own show as you shout out the tired dads rating with you. I know this resonates. It really, really resonates with me so much because like, I love my guild, and they've changed their name to Low Caliber now as they've moved over to Aragorn, and I wish the guys nothing but the best, and I love and miss you all dearly already, and it's only been a week. But I got so much fun stick, tongue in cheek. The boys would give it to me because like I'm an anomaly as well. Like, granted, I'm a 40-year-old man, mate. I'm not a fucking spring chicken anymore, but like, I got a lot of stick being the old man. I was the oldest by 5 or 6 years in the guild, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
But like we raided at relatively early hours, so we would raid from 6:30 my time to 9:30, twice a week, and it was so fucking obvious that I would start to lose concentration. My reaction time would go down around about the 8:30, 8:45 mark. So, if we started off in Ulduar, by the time we get to Freya, definitely, because we're trying hard modes and everything, we get to Freya, it's probably the last boss we're going to do, if not Mimiron, before the end of the night. And like, you can see, it's funny because if you watch my passes, even though I know healer passes mean nothing, sorry, not the pass number, but if you watch my HPS, like, I'm kicking ass at the start of the raid. I'm usually our top healer. And then just the dive it takes as the night goes on because I'm really falling asleep. And I'm like, boys, it's past my bedtime. It's 9 o'clock. And just the riot of laughter going, you fucking old cunt, blah, blah, blah. So I feel it.
No, I mean, and Sarah, and like we're up late. We're up much later than that. Like we're not like I see dads. It's probably people who are like in their like mid 30s, but it's not. And most of them don't even have children, but they're just a bit like the first couple polls. I've got really people who are on the edge of the seat. They're playing really well, but then after you throw a couple polls in, people for whatever reason, they start to detach. They start to lose focus, and they get tired. Even though it's been the whole night. It's like that boss was killable that week. 100% was killable. And like I made some like rallying cries, and we went over time to even attempt it, and we still left it at 30 minutes because it'd been the first week where we really cleared most of those bosses. We never killed Yogg 1. We had never killed Mimron. And we were just like, and I wasn't even going to attempt Mimron. I was like, nah, I'm not even going to try Mimron. I'm not trying Algalon. This run sucks, dude. There's no way. And we two-shot it. Right, we two-shot a boss we had never seen in that run, with a bunch of players who were pretty subpar, and so I think that really does speak to the fact that it is functionally nerfed. If I can clear it in a and I'm not God's gift to raid leading. Honestly, I'm not. I'm pretty good, but I'm no fucking guru on that shit. So it's not I'm not like carrying these people through to the end. It is just that the content is easy enough, honestly, after a couple weeks of gear. It really is. And it's 2 months of gear in reality, but after 2 months of gear, you can kind of just juice through it. It's not nearly as difficult. And I think that is a much more organic. I think it feels a lot better in terms of the way that things are nerfed.
I'm with you.
So I don't think it should be nerfed, and I don't think it will be nerfed because I think that the team understands how the item levels did actually nerf it.
I'm with you that the difficulty is perfect. I think you see these comments around. I'm not the only person saying it. You're not the only person saying it. Everything feels just about right. The Goldilocks test has been passed. And
it really has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, it's okay to leave some challenges. If Algalon's a little bit hard for a lot of guilds, it's okay to leave challenges in the game and leave some gear off the table if you're not able to get it. That's fine. We need to get back to a system of raiding where not everyone gets all the gear. And one of my big things that, to be honest with you, mate, I spoke to my guild leader anyway, and just before the faction transfer drama happened, I actually flagged with him like, look, mate, I'm getting a little bit over rating. I'm probably going to take a more casual seat and just be a bench player for you guys coming into the next phase, because I was getting over rating for a multitude of reasons. Number one, it's just sort of not really me, but also like, and I'm not trying to flex on like, oh, I got a lot of gear, because I didn't have like full BIS or anything. But one of the things that turned me off rating was how quickly I got decked out on my shaman. Like I think I had 4-piece tier after 2 lockouts. I had all these Ulduar drops. After, I think, our 3rd Ulduar run, I was pretty much set. And like I said, I was doing really well on the healing meters. I felt powerful. And I just felt like I didn't have a carrot at the end of the stick to chase anymore. And I was like, I got too much too soon, because we were in a successful guild that was clearing the content. Everyone got theirs and we were loving life. And I'm like, and I know everyone goes, oh, well, you don't have your BIS weapon. Yeah, I don't. But like, I've got so much good shit, I don't care anymore. And I prefer the days of like, you know, running shit in Classic in pugs. And I'm not trying to tear down the fabric of guild raiding. You know, guild raiding's great. Everyone get together with your friends and do it. But like, when you're not guaranteed of handouts and you're running in pugs, some of the thrill is like, fuck, I haven't got anything in 3 weeks. I'm still chasing a fucking purple set of hands. Like, I'll take anything at this point. And it keeps you coming back for more. And I loved that about Classic. And it was just raining gear in Wrath, and it's just turned me off. I don't know if that sort of means anything to you when I say it.
I still think it's still difficult to deck people out in 252s is the only issue that I would have with that. Because essentially everything, you know, you had I don't know if this is true for everyone, but I think Dying Curse, items like Dying Curse were infamous last phase, because they are one item on a drop table that can roll 4 different things. Right? So it's not like, ooh, normal drop table, okay, boss drops this, okay, he drops 3 different things. So he'll drop 3 out of his 9 pieces. Okay, it's likely enough that you get what you need. It's less so when it's like you have one item that's one of 4 things, because then it's just always 25% chance. No matter when you kill the boss, it's never going to be more than that, and so you can feasibly get pretty unlucky. It's the same thing with, you know, pretty much every hard mode item in Ulduar, and so we are running 5 raids right now. 3 of them are GDKPs, where we just purchase everything with the guild bank money that we get from just having a ludicrous cut on behalf of the guild. We take 25% of all of the gold from those runs straight into the guild bank. And then we pay for our players' items. So we put them out of our main runs, and we're like, okay, well, you need a flare, you need Pharaoh's gloves, you need this, you need that. We're going to throw you into this run. And we're going to buy you everything. And so we have been very challenged to do that. And I have spent probably on my character, probably with the guild bank's money, 300, 400,000 gold to fully BIS my character. I'm missing 1 item, basically. Technically, you could say I'm missing 3. If I wanted to change my weapon to wear a Star Shard, a Cosmos, and a Scale, I could do that. I think that it's worse. The Sims say it's better. I think that, practically speaking, though, when you look at it, on any boss fight other than a 3-minute boss fight, it becomes worse. And I think that 3-minute boss fights are pretty rare. And also, it's just... it's worse because I also staff weave during Lust on Mage, and the staff is more DPS than the dagger. And that's... Anyway. It's a weird life, the fire mage melee weave. But
mate, I
just play the game to play the game, you know? Like, I don't play the game for gear. I think it's
Fair
weird
enough.
playing the game for gear. Like we do that because like we want to chase speed kills and stuff, and it's like, you know, you got to find your carrot, because for us that's our carrot, right? You know, it's chasing speed kills. It's trying to play well, but I just play the game because I enjoy the game. And
No,
for me,
agree.
it was finding different aspects of that. So like I was not having nearly as much fun in TBC as I was in Classic, because Classic, you have sort of these environments, you have these, you know, sort of these stories, these narratives, these emergent experiences, less so in TBC. But in Wrath, I found that it was extremely challenging to try and lead a raid while DPSing at the very top. I think that the raid leader tax is real. It exists. It's not cope in reality, because telling people when to press the cooldowns and directing where the raid should go, especially in a raid like Ulduar, where it's not just, okay, guys, DPS the boss, okay, dispel this thing, all right, kill the boss. Right? It's like, hey, we got to move here for this mechanic. We have to go here. These are the cooldowns that we're popping. This is where we're going to tank the boss. This is where we're going to go. We have to make a, snap decision to change something. We're on Freya, detonating lashes going out. Okay, it's move now. Trying to incorporate those things into and communicate those things to 24 other players while DPSing is actually very challenging for me. And so I really like it just because of the challenge. So I'm not like, ooh, my carrot is just getting better. No,
and you're a better human being than me, because I've said it on the show before, I'm a self-professed loot whore. Not to the toxic level. I'm not that guy that like needs shit he shouldn't need and like abuses people for fucking taking something that I thought was quote unquote mine. I don't whisper people to buy shit off them after they've rolled for it. I don't do any of that shit. I just do it the old fashioned way, roll on it, pray that I get it. But like loot that comes my way probably means more to me than the average player. I really enjoy the dopamine hit that I get from upgrading my gear. It's not the only reason I play the game. I obviously love playing with my guild, but it is a big factor in why I play the game. I love those upgrades to go and do other shit like world PvP. But
yeah.
Mate,
no, I'm with you.
I found the thing. Just we'll tie off on this. It's funny because I've obviously
you found the meteorite crystal.
I found the meteorite crystal thing, and this will be the last thing we talk about in regards to Wrath. Then I've titled this thing. What's the deal with Season of Mastery 2? And in classic Josh fashion, we've done 60 minutes and haven't fucking said a word about Season of Mastery 2. But we're getting there, guys. Last thing on Wrath, the meteorite crystal thing. All right. There was a weak aura that was posted. You'll know much more about this than me, mate. Weak aura that was posted that does the following. After casting Meteorite Crystal, it will attempt to summon the albino snake and cast Find Fish every 0.025 seconds, 40 times per second, until you have 20 stacks of Meteorite Inspiration and 20 seconds have passed as a failsafe, since that's the duration of the Trinket buff. Now, it goes on to explain, someone saying Blizzard needs to ban this or get on this. They were saying the aura basically automates summoning the albino snake every 0.025 seconds to stack the Algalon 10-man mana trinket instantly. It's kind of game breaking, particularly in PvP for holy paladins, and just is really cheesy in general. Long live the snake weaving was basically the comment that came up in the content creator Discord. So is this the first you're hearing of this?
That is the first I'm hearing of it. I was under the impression that was not possible.
Well, apparently
doesn't it literally say on that trinket, abilities with no mana will not trigger this?
I mean, look, maybe it doesn't work. That someone just like found the weak aura that was on Waggo and just said like, this shouldn't be a thing. Maybe it's not a thing.
That might be a clam weaving situation where that doesn't, like, clam weaving never worked.
Yeah, but clam weaving was a joke from the start. I don't get a joke vibe from this one.
Are you?
Well, it's only
I mean, they included the fishing in there. Are you hooked right now? Is that
I am hooked.
Can you taste the rusted iron in your mouth?
I am completely hooked. But like, I don't know, if you're joking, you put it on the subreddit, not DM it straight to Blizzard's veins.
That's true. That is true.
But anyway, well, yeah, it's something we'll dig into that one after the fact. I won't put you on the spot and sort of ask for your reaction.
No, I'll be honest. I haven't heard of it. I have no clue. If you could do that, though, that would be insane, because I don't think that has a cap. So I think that would just fully regen your mana, because it's like each spell within X amount of seconds gives you stacking bonus. But as far as I was aware, there's no cap to it.
Well, we'll see.
Really funny interaction with trinkets as well. I think they're, Spark of Hope off of Kolagarn 10 man.
Yep.
So it reduces mana cost or whatever. I think that you could maybe use that with there's a trinket like that in Kata in the first tier that makes Arcane Mage insane. And I think that it might interact with, I think that you could maybe combine them together to just like have like basically a 0 cost Arcane Blast. And the way that Arcane Mage works in Kata is, obviously they introduce Mastery. And so Mastery for Arcane Mage makes you do more damage when you have higher percent mana. So it's sort of like that's how they reintroduce the game of, okay, well, you need, like you want high mana, so you're going to evocate. Why are you going to evocate? Because you're about to do your burst window and you want 100% damage from your mana being high. So I think that they kind of reintroduced that in a clever way. But this kind of genre of trinket, because the way Arcane Blast works, its base mana is very low, but it increases rapidly. Having those trinkets actually makes it insane. But that could be like an early patch, maybe. I'm not really sure. Don't quote me on it.
Fair enough. Mate, let's move on. Last pin that I'll drop on Wrath is, I have to ask you, did you see fucking Mr. Wobble's guild recruitment video on the subreddit?
I did. I saw the first day he started singing.
Wasn't it just the greatest fucking thing since sliced bread?
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. I was looking at the parses. I kind of had my nose upturned the whole time. I was like, brother.
No.
Other than that,
but the video was fucking 10 out of 10. Like, Patricia and I were almost in tears watching it. I've reached out to him. I want him on the show. I thought it was that fucking funny. But anyway,
I mean, it's pretty damn funny. It would be great to have him on the show.
Yeah, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, please go to the Classic WoW subreddit and look for. You won't miss it. It's probably one of the most fucking upvoted posts of all time on the subreddit, with like almost 6,000 upvotes now for Mr. Wobbles and his guild, his recruitment video asking a guild to take him on board. Yeah, it was brilliant. But anyway, mate, let's get to the fucking fun part. Finally, after all of that, Season of Mastery 2. Look, it's funny because you get all these people who are asking, like, is this a thing? Like, why are we talking about this when nothing's been announced? Are we sure this is going to be a thing? I mean, I just talk about it like, it's a foregone conclusion. I made the joke, if you sit there and read the tea leaves, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to work out that something is very much so not just coming, but is coming imminently. Do you agree with that? Or do you think there's a chance that actually this is all a bit of piss and wind and nothing fucking happens anytime soon?
I don't know about the timeline. Obviously, they had those 2 jobs posted fairly recently for QA stuff, so obviously they're ramping some stuff up. But I don't know what that timeline looks like. I think it could be a few months.
Oh, I think it's 2 months from now. I think launch is 2 months from now.
Launch 2 months. So I would say like 4 or 5.
Okay.
If you had a gun to my head, if you'd a gun to my head and I had to be accurate, or else you would kill me. I would say that amount of time, but I don't think it's unrealistic for it to be. I don't think you're crazy in that. I do think that they have something. Here's the thing. There are whispers that this is not just a Psalm 2, right?
Yes.
That it will be more interesting than that.
What more like
that could just be the inclusion of the hardcore stuff, but the way that they have been hush around it, and obviously you're in circles, people talk, right?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, let's not dance around it too much.
Grandiose than that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
It seems like they want to do a lot.
I agree with you, and let's not beat around the bush too much without going into detail, but also without being too coy about it. I have gotten the same vibe, absolutely, that like something pretty sizable is cooking, and that's why I invoke that phrase Classic Plus. Like, we've tossed and turned on the show whether Classic Plus is a reality. I personally have woken up every other day saying yes, no, yes, they'll do it, no, they'd never do it, yes. Like, I just fucking can't tell. But like, more recently, like I say, if I'm reading the vibes in talking to the people that we talk to, I am guessing that something big is cooking. Has something specifically been said to me? Fuck no. And people always ask, oh, Josh, you must have been told something. Tell us what they've told you. Look, with all the love and adoration in the world for the Classic team, those guys are fucking, tighter than a fish's butthole. They don't say a word. They're very, very good.
You familiar with that?
I am very familiar with the level of elasticity. Yeah. No, but like they're very, very good. They're not fucking idiots. They go, I'm not going to say anything that's going to get me in trouble. And they don't. But like, just... it's the je ne sais quoi factor.
It's the vibe.
It's the vibe. And there's a classic.
The vibe is very much being struck of big things are on the horizon.
Absolutely.
And are very soon. That's what they put out. That's because they've been very hush hush. It's very serious. And if it weren't, they would not that they would tell everyone, not that you and I are so important that we're so on the in, but like we would probably know. if it were like more of a milder thing, we would probably know at this point.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to sit here.
I think we don't, because it is a big deal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to sit here, I am a dickhead, but I'm not trying to sit here and be that dickhead flexing on people going, oh, fucking we talk to the devs, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not, they've told us fucking nothing that makes us special in any way, shape or form.
Yeah.
And I'm laughing because there's a very famous Australian movie made that every Australian will know called The Castle. And when you say the vibe, there's a very famous scene that is near and dear to my heart, which basically there is a character in the movie which is the depiction of, the world's worst lawyer, the personification of Lionel Hutz, all that shit. He's very, very funny. He's jokingly referred to as like the patron saint of lawyers in Australia. They go to a scene, you imagine you're in the fucking US Supreme Court and they're doing an appeal, and the judge asks him, you haven't said on what section of the act does your argument lie, and he puts his hand on the Constitution of Australia and says, it's just the vibe of the thing. And that's really what we're reading here, is this like this pulse, this vibe that like the wind is blowing a certain direction and we're looking up going, hey ma, storms are coming.
It's because it's what we get because being the dickheads that you and I are, and being that we are in contact with the people on the team because we really care about the game, and the people who make the game really care about the game, and so they talk to the people who care about the game. We are always poking them. We're always like, hey, like what's going on? Like what's happening?
I don't poke too hard. Do you poke a lot?
I don't poke a lot, but I poke. We poke more than most.
You're a serial poker.
We are genre pokers, okay? And so with that, right, we have learned to gauge what is around the corner. And up until now, pretty much every release that has gone in line with what's happening has felt very consistent in terms of what happens when you poke the thing, right? You get out your stick, you hit it, and it pretty much responds the way that you think it's going to. They respond in the way that they normally do. There has been a tone shift, right? The tone has shifted. The vibe is different, right? And that is what I am concluding this based off of. Obviously, it's a very...
Let's lead that into this question. And Hallican asks us, you're 100% spot on. How's the Serenity? Exactly, as he quotes The Castle. You've really got to go watch The Castle North. It is a fucking amazing movie. Anyway, you'd actually really, really laugh at it. But let's get into this, because now it would be a fruitless endeavor to ask you, North, and I had the menu splayed out before me, which was like, what do you think is more probable than not that we're getting? The reboot of what we got in 2019, the Classic Plus with all the fucking changes, or the dipping the water in the halfway point. Sorry, dipping the foot in the water in the halfway point between the two. I think, you've made it pretty obvious what you think is coming, and I concur with you. I agree with you that, I think it is now more likely that we get something with significant changes, whether or not it amounts to the full-on Classic Plus, 6 new dungeons, 3 new raids, blowing your fucking mind, fireworks, explosions. Whether or not it gets to that extent, I personally think we're getting what I would just term as significant changes. And again, I haven't heard anything. Don't be those dickheads, guys. I don't know. I am just guessing. But I would be shocked now if it was just, oh yeah, guys, here's 2019 and Paladins. Here's 2019's Classic and Paladins get a taunt. Okay, bye.
Yeah, I would also be a little shocked, because I don't think that they would try and... Not that they're trying to do anything, but I don't think that they would be putting off I don't think it would be as hush-hush, right? I don't think it would be as hush-hush if it were that mild, right? Because it's pretty damn mild, right, that. So I think that they'll, and I've had a lot of conversations with people on the do about SOM and about what they want for SOM. And even in that, no confirmations of a second song. Yeah, like not a single in that, because they're very careful on this. Not a single positive confirmation. Oh my God, there's going to be a Psalm 2. This is what Psalm 2 is going to be about.
But yeah.
Okay,
none of that.
They're always hypothetical. It's always okay. Well, if you wanted to do, like, what would you think would be good? And there's back and forth on that. And there's just it's all hypotheticals. It's always hypotheticals. It's because it's people ultimately, these developers, producers, testers, members of the team. They just love the game so much, and so they're willing to have these conversations with people who shitheads like me and Josh. About these kinds of things. And so I would, based on the things that I have talked about them that they would have liked to implement, I think that we could be seeing some of those things. And I really, really hope that we are, because I think some of those more drastic changes to try and, rather than shore up the weaknesses of Classic, to emphasize what is strong about it and emphasize what is amazing and really, really hard to replicate in later versions of the game. I think that is what they should do, and I think that that is what they are going to do. Obviously, that's a little hopeful, but
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, as just on your point as well, and to weave in a comment there from Alex Ladd, who said, look, guys, I'm going to paraphrase for you, Alex, but it's a fair point to raise. He's like, North, Josh, like, not to blow your minds, but maybe nothing is being worked out on, and that's why they're being quiet, which is a fair point to raise. But like on what you said, North, I must throw this out there because I laugh at it given your comment. But I was chatting with a Grand the other day, and a Grand's sphincter just tightened. And don't worry, mate, I'm not going to divulge fucking the ins and outs of our DMs. The guys I would like to think know I'm very good like that. But as he says, he's about to divulge something. I'll say this much because I laughed at it. A Grand said something the other day along the lines of, if we were to even release SOM 2, or like he said something that was like, what makes you think SOM 2 is coming? And I'm like, come on, buddy. Like, wouldn't even give an inch. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're good about it.
They're very good about
specifically it. Specifically is, very close to the chest, right? So
yeah, I love
it. Yeah, wouldn't even dream of also of those conversations of any specifics ever being leaked about them, because I have an immense amount of respect for people's privacy, and things being said in confidence, right, should remain that way. But
absolutely.
But I mean, you're a lawyer, right? You get it.
No. Mate, I mean, it's not even the
dev fan.
It's not even the lawyer thing in me. It's the journalist side of me. And I've said to those guys, and like, they've got no reason to believe me, and I 100% respect that. I've said to them all, I've been like, mate, look, whether you believe me or not, anything heavy you say to me will never get uttered to another fucking person. I'm not going to publish it online and do the YouTube video of, you won't believe what this dev said. But like, that means nothing to them, because all it takes is some content creator that they don't know from fucking,
Oh, for sure. And they make one bad judgment, and then that just goes out the door, betting on someone's integrity when they have every reason to try and bet on their own profit.
100%.
Because that's, the vast majority of what people are, people looking out for their livelihoods. And you give someone a juicy piece of info, 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, they're going to fucking publish it because it's going to get them views.
And it's funny because I thought I found a funny breadcrumb trail the other day that I'll talk to you about when we're not recording, that I thought revealed some hints towards when we're getting SOM 2, but I'll talk about it if it becomes a thing, and after we get it, we can laugh about it. Yeah, I know. It's really not that big of a deal, but I think someone's dropped the ball outside of Blizzard on something. I don't know. But anyway, it's all fucking conspiracy theories. Mate, look, let's talk about the meat of it. We've talked the bullshit. Let's get to the crux of it. If you do think something big is coming, what do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about what you think is coming or what you want to come?
Well, I think that those are I think that they're the same thing. I think what I want to come is the thing that's coming.
You think they're releasing North's Dream WoW?
Well, obviously not, right? But within reasonable expectations, I think that the things we're going to see are the emphasis of the world. I think that we're going to see a de-emphasis of rating content's difficulty. I think that they're going to restore.
I agree.
I don't think that they're going to dream of ever walking into that again.
They know where their bread is buttered now.
Yeah, and they had good reason not to previously, right? They were kind of just, for a better lack of a better phrasing on this, they were kind of just fucking about, right? They were just like, okay, let's see what we can do because people have said that they want this. And then they did it with basically no help.
They basically called the classic community out, not in a devious fashion, but they kind of called us out with someone, because it's like, here's new raids that are harder. And granted, there were extenuating circumstances, like the availability of fucking potions and all that shit, and how hard it was to farm that made this harder. But at the end of the day, take a drink. We kind of said, We don't want harder raids. We like the easy ones. That's why we're classic players.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I also don't know. Like, I think people were talking about that for a long time. They're like, "Ooh, the raids are too easy." I don't think people who were on the pulse are saying it's like the people who were. Maybe this is a childish analogy, okay? And bear with me, I'm going to regress a little bit here. I think the people that wanted batching maybe would be the same kind of people who would be like, "Yeah, we need harder raids. Yeah, we need harder raids and we need batching. Those are very important to the classic experience." It's like, I feel like you're missing the point. And I don't want to tell people their business. I don't want to say that I'm right.
Your
wrong.
boner for the batching thing is going to be
God forbid.
biblical in the annals of this show.
I was cursed in the swamps of Florida under a full moon when I was born by, a witch to never be wrong. And, it's a burden that I have to bear.
Hey, let me butt in. Guys in the audience, by the way, everyone on YouTube as well, this goes to you guys if you're in the Discord. If you have questions for North and I, now is the time to jump in. You can click the hand button to put your hand up and get involved in the conversation. By all means, if you want to shoot either him or I a question and continue this topic, you are more than welcome to. So I'm just throwing that out there, guys. Sorry, North, I butted in now. Where were we going with this? We were going with your dream WoW. Let's get to the nitty gritty. Let's talk about some.
Before we do that, I do want to say one thing, and I think one thing that is extremely important to the SOM conversation is not that people necessarily need the raids to be exactly as they were, and they need to be that easy. I actually think having them in a similar sort of scope of maybe a little less challenging than SOM, maybe like looking around Ulduar 10-man kind of difficulty where, maybe the end boss is kind of challenging, but everything else is sort of a breeze, but there's some thought involved. Not everyone can just walk in and kill a boss in 10 seconds. I think maybe people would have appreciated that. And I think that to ascribe the fail, I think to identify, okay, it's kind of a call out. People didn't really want this. I don't think that that's strictly true, because I think there were mitigating circumstances. People were playing TBC. The player base was split. Leveling from, even with the increased XP, leveling from that beginning was kind of daunting for people to do again. Because a lot of people, had just, they have their characters, they want to continue with their characters. So I think that a lot of stuff goes into it. Right. I think that it's unfair to be like, okay, well, these raids need to be easy because Ulduar is easy. Right.
That's fair.
Realistically, Ulduar is pretty fucking easy. So it's not like people need it to be hard.
So do you think people want options?
I wouldn't, but I don't think that that's the reason why it failed. I don't think that it, but I only say that because if I'm thinking about my perfect vision for the game, it would have easier raids and it would have harder raids. It wouldn't just have all easy raids. And so you have that. Well, that's what I'm saying. So you have that with AQ the choice on some level.
So you want to give players agency, a choice.
Yes, but not even in the. I mean, maybe it would be in optional hard modes, which were kind of introduced in SOM, right? But I mean, albeit in kind of odd ways. So, and I didn't really play SOM apart from launch, so I don't have as much experience with it. So maybe I'm, blowing. I'm just kind of blowing smoke up everyone's ass with this, but I think that the vein of those changes were actually interesting. I think that having some kinds of things like that, I think maybe the avenue that I would want to see if they were ever to go and try and do something like that again, maybe they will never, but if they did, would be to have those harder modes for cosmetic things like a Mimron's head, stuff like that, in the form of Zero Light, but also for like the horizontally progressed loot that we always talk about. It's like, ooh, the things that make other people viable, you could do it through gear. You could maybe have those harder modes do that, right? So you could have it be stuff that doesn't feel as mandatory, but you can get a thing and have the carrot, have the dopamine loop filled from doing the harder version of the boss in a way that's not like, ooh, you're just getting an extra piece of loot. Ooh, the loot is higher item level. Maybe straying away from that, but still having an avenue for players to challenge themselves outside of speedruns.
Keeping that in mind, let me ask about this. Just before I ask you, though, let me throw in the caveat. For all of you driving along the highway right now and throwing your listening device out the window because you're so angry that we're sitting here talking about Classic Plus and all you've ever wanted is just the 2019 reboot and hashtag no changes and all that shit, blah, 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 blah. I don't want you to get the impression that I'm shitting on that version of the game. Vanilla WoW is obviously one of the greatest fucking games of all time. It prompted me to create this 5-year-long now podcast. I love the game like a fucking son, blah, 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 blah. Or a daughter, obviously. But I just want to say that the season tag, I think, has been made obvious enough by Blizzard that they want to fuck around and experiment. I'm also on the record saying I have no dramas whatsoever if Blizzard were to fucking launch a new era server, fucking relaunch era, get people playing that version of the game that they want to play, give us a new SOM server, experiment with that version of the game. I don't give a fuck. I'm not like against the game as it is untouched. That my big point has just kind of been, I still feel like we just did that. I can still see it in my rear view mirror. We haven't passed it that long ago. I'm still personally on board with more and more changes being made to the game to fuck around on a seasonal server, but that's just me. I respect that people don't feel that way and don't want them to touch the fucking game because they don't trust the changes, blah, 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 blah. But I just want to throw that caveat in. Now, North, let me throw it back to you and ask, how do you feel about... I threw out, sometimes they do feel like heresy when I say these kinds of things, but I was like, if I were to guess that Blizzard goes, maybe there's more than 40-man rating, maybe there's a 10 or a 25-man option. How do you feel about that?
I would prefer that. I think that 40-man raids suck. I'll be honest. I think that 40-man raids suck. That's just the top and bottom of it. I think that it's not a good, because like if you want 2 raids, and a lot of guilds do want 2 raids, then you need either 40 people with 2 characters or 80 people in your guild. Whereas like having 50 people in your guild or 25 people with 2 characters is a lot more approachable for the way that people approach the game now. I think the 25-man is a better size. Just through and through. If anything, I think the 20-man is probably the best raid size, because then it's 2 10-mans, right? And it's like the same size as ZG, right? So if you were to introduce 10-mans, right, like, and it's 4, 5-mans, so like it kind of like the structure of it makes more sense, whereas like 25 kind of sucks because like if the game has 10-man raids or 20-man raids, which it does, having the 40 into 20 actually does make sense, but having 25 into 10s, that doesn't really make much sense. I'm not sure why they decided to go with 25 versus 20. That has always confused me.
Okay, let's keep.
Has that not confused you? That seems weird.
No, I know what you mean. Let's zip through the relatively easy stuff, because then I really do want to talk about classes, because I haven't done that yet on the show and I want to do more of that. But let's really try and rip through the simple stuff. Look, I think that a 2 times experience rate is a fucking foregone conclusion. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that. What would you say?
Disagree with that.
Okay, you think you might get 1 times?
I don't know, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion either way.
Okay, fair enough.
I think that 6 times out of 10 you're right, but right.
It is really slightly more likely than not.
Yeah, I think it is more likely than not, but I just don't know. I just don't know.
What do you want?
I like the slower leveling, and Frugo in chat is he has a brilliant idea. They would never. I don't think they'd ever do this. And this would be like more of like a seasonal, like sort of like Diablo style thing, which I spoke about with cargoes, which I thought would be interesting, is if they really, because we were talking about this forever ago, and it was like, oh yeah, like really they should do it seasonally. They should have these seasons, and then they've had their first one obviously, but we had in mind like sort of a more, it's like, okay, it goes and then another one and then another one and then another one, not like huge gaps in between. And like pretty significant changes, but like gating leveling would be so interesting.
I was going to ask like about that. Absolutely.
That would be brilliant. That would be so cool, because you saw the metas in the beta, right? Like
I vividly remember how much people loved it in the beta.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was so much fun, because you had, people making their own content as they're waiting for more stuff to be, and so they're exploring all the stuff at the lower levels. They're not just rushing past it. They're exploring really everything that the game has to offer at those lower levels, which is so interesting. And you have your own little grind where it's like, oh, let me get my bis. Let me get my level 19 bis. Let me get my level 30 bis. Let me get my fucking level 40
super glad that the Frugo brought that up and you picked up on that, mate, because I was absolutely going to touch on it. And now that you've said all that, I have to ask. My question was actually not so much revolved around the concept of it, but around the reception to it. So, like, has it shocked you at all? Because I've seen the comments come back on this one on the subreddit. Has it shocked you at all to see that, look, if I were to, again, this is a fucking, anecdotal effort that I'm about to give you, but I would gauge very roughly that there seems to be about a 50-50 sort of reception of this one. Half the people are on board with it. Half the people think it's fucking stupid. I was a little shocked to see the amount of negative comments on this one, because I'm like, people really did love this with the beta, and then you suggest it for Season of Mastery 2, And a lot of people are like, that's the dumbest fucking idea I've ever heard. Do not stop me from leveling. This is fucking stupid. MMOs are about go at whatever pace you want. But I'm on board with it. And I threw it out on my tweet the other day saying, I think it would be fun to do. I'm a big proponent of this one, an advocate of it.
It would be brilliant. It would be brilliant. It would be nothing short of brilliant.
Well, the other benefit is it's temporary. It's a if you don't like it, mate, it's temporary.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a seasonal thing. It lets the team play off of stuff that is genius about the game already, and that they can really bounce new ideas and new changes off of, because some of the best content of vanilla WoW, let's be honest, is in the early dungeons. The early dungeons and the early environments and the early PvP out in the world. Ashenvale is an iconic zone. Stone Town is an iconic zone.
Mate,
I've
been living in Duskwood. Let me say,
Stranglethorn.
I've been living in Duskwood on Era on my level 23 rogue. I don't have cheap shot. I don't have kidney shot. I don't have a fucking thing. I am this useless rogue, but I have been a pest to the Alliance over the last few days. And I'm sorry if you're listening, if I ganked you, you probably got me back. I'm 50-50 in wins and losses here, whether I have my cooldowns. But living in Duskwood as a fucking horde has been so much fun. And if you created that as a war zone for a couple of weeks, I think it would be wild content.
And it is. And when people have their professions up and they're, you have this little ecosystem where, I remember when I was a kid, right? Because people just took the game slower. I had a Phantom Blade crafted at level 44, and I was so excited. Sheathed on my back, sick item. Based item especially for Rogue 1v1s, because it applied to Fairy Fire. It was awesome. And you have no reason to go and get that item. Not really, because any amount of power that you could get from having someone level blacksmithing early on is immediately trumped by just getting levels, right, on those people. So any amount of power, any amount of progression that you would get from that item is completely wasted. And so with the way that people play games, they can play it fast enough. Before, it was so slow and it was so communal that it had a place, and all those things, they've lost their place, right? The Black Fathom Depths, the Nomergons, really, they've lost their place when you don't slow people down on purpose. And people will. Sid Meier's was very famous for, and I've quoted this probably 100 times in the show, right? People will min-max the fun out of the game. They will.
Right, and I'm on board with the whole, save the players from themselves, blah, blah, blah. I'm on the record saying, the worst fucking thing about modern MMOs is the ravenous desire of the player base to spoil the game for themselves. And let's go,
sometimes
New World was the great...
you want something, and you don't.
New World was the great example of, the amount of fucking guides about that game before it launched. I knew all this shit about how to do it before day one of the fucking game. And I refuse to watch any of them because I'm like, this is fucking ridiculous. What are we doing to ourselves? But that is modern gaming culture. What do all the fucking website and the publications want to do now? Guides. We don't want people writing articles. We want you writing guides because that's what gets clicks. Gamers want to fuck the game up for themselves. I have always hated that, hated with a capital H, really, really. And that's where I made videos at the start of Classic, and I was like, okay, let me make these BIS guides. And then I was like, oh, I'm gonna make these raid guides. I'm gonna tell people how to parse all these bosses. They're really gonna. And then I was like, wait. And I sat with it, just for a moment, and I was like, this is bad. This is bad. I am actively destroying the fabric of the thing that I like for money. Fuck that. That's so dumb. It just doesn't, it's not I care more about the game than I do about whatever amount of money I maybe would have gotten from that. And I literally stepped out of streaming altogether because I couldn't find a place in it that was healthy. It's really hard to interact with the game in a way where you're trying to make money off of it, where you're not actively making it worse for everyone. It's very challenging. World PvP is the answer, my friend.
It fucking sucks.
Get involved in the world PvP. I got to feed my cat. Let me ask you a question while I quickly run and get some food for my cat. All right, stew on this one for a second. Again, I do want to get to the classes, but let me just go off on this one. Where was I? Okay, again, new PvP system. I think that is a foregone conclusion. They've data mined the possibility of hardcore servers. That's great. What else? What else? What else? What else? We've got mixing up the gathering nodes. I think they should do that. Blah 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 blah. Anyway, well, let's get to the class stuff. That's the fucking easy stuff. Answer this in a second. I'll be back in 30 seconds with some food for my cat. Outside of the simple answers like Paladin gets a taunt, give mana to a boomkin, give mana to a fucking shaman, all the simple stuff that we talk about, what do you think is flying under the radar the most for a class change that we don't talk about out in the open? Mate, I'll be back in 30 seconds.
It's gonna be something to do with warlocks. It's gonna be, if it's under the radar, it's gonna be warlocks. I'm gonna wait for him to get back though. So I want to be able to bounce this off of him. I don't want it to be, his cat needs to be fed. My cat's sitting in the corner. She sleeps on my mage hat now.
All right, sorry,
It's really funny. No, welcome back. I was just stewing on it, and I think it's kind of a lame answer that I have, but I think it makes me look good, and that's the only thing that I care. No, I think the answer is Warlock summons.
What about it?
And I think that's more of a logistical change. I think that they will nerf them.
Okay, hit me. Because I had a big chat about summoning stones the other day, and I'm rather passionate about this one, but I want to hear about you and Warlock summons.
Well, for sure, summoning stones suck.
I agree. So some people were asking for them, because I thought the easy piece of feedback from someone was that the enabling the summoning stones was actually a bad thing. We thought it was a good thing, turned out to be a bad thing. But there were some people going, oh, actually, no, I think summoning stones should be a thing.
I don't want to be lopped into this I always thought that was a bad thing. But go ahead.
But I think summoning stones should not be a thing.
We can go through the fucking archives, okay? And I've always been like, that's a bad idea.
Yeah, fair enough. Anyway. And we know why. And I was thinking of you as this point was being made. We all go on about, the not only the summoning stones, but the summons to dungeons and everything, the flying mounts and the just going to the arbitrary journey to the dungeon over the top of the world. None of it matters. Like, we all talk about the world. The thing that Vanilla WoW has that the other expansions don't have is the world. Why do you fucking think it's the most popular version of the game? Because of the world. What happens in the world? World PvP, baby. Create more content by creating more instances of world PvP through travel to dungeons. I mean, I just think it's an easy answer. You get people traveling on ground mounts, content gets created, fun gets had, blah, 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 blah.
Chokes arise, people have, fights over objectives that would never exist. The fucking Viet Cong ass era of me going in Feralus and jumping from tree to tree from the road from Majachi to Dire Mall while evading, horde gang squads and kiting them into the little alliance camp with the sprite darter night elf. That was a dishonorable kill. As much as dishonorable kills shouldn't have existed, we worked with what was there. They could not push us because they could not AoE on top of that without losing ranks, right? So you have these sort of weird and crazy sort of emergent experiences that can arise only because you have forced people into an arena where everyone has the same rules, and the rules are you have to work within the environment. And so when you have these natural chokes, when you have this CC available, when you have when people can't just fly over people, right? It is immensely more engaging, and it's immensely more grounded. It feels immensely more dangerous in all the best possible ways.
My spiciest take will always be make anyone 5 levels lower than you or more a dishonorable kill with severe penalties.
5 levels lower than you.
And that's being generous.
I think that there are reasons to want that, but you would have to. I think honestly, it's a terrible take because you would need a very complicated lineage type system where.
Well, then,
if they attacked you, then what do you do, right?
No, I appreciate that.
Attack you, okay, then it's fine.
Let me attack you though. Let me attack you for a second because I appreciate what you're saying. You say you hate that take, yet are you not on board with the developing Ashes system that basically seeks to punish lobby killing and incite more and more fair world PvP?
So but it doesn't actually do that, right?
You can still be a villain if you want.
It encourages counterplay. So it gives you an avenue when it gives you the choice. Whereas like having it be a dishonorable kill is not a choice. It becomes impossible, right? If you add GHK, it's not okay. You can lose your gear. It's you've now everything that you've worked towards. You've now lost.
But you can choose not to kill them.
Well, for sure. But what if you can't? What if you're AOEing?
Okay,
just run up on
I appreciate it.
Right?
There are difficulties there. I get that.
Yeah, no. So there are, and even if this was a problem in stacking, I don't know if I've ever told you this story. There was this hunter that followed me around after I had capped on Northdale, because it's like the second time that I ranked was on Northdale, and obviously you stacked all the bracket 1 people. They stacked to the same honor level, so they got the same amount of RP, right? And a lot of people wouldn't do this, but I was capped very early because I was in the best pre-made a lot of the time. And so I would go and I would be farming. I'd be, getting demonic runes. I'd be getting my, what was it? The weird consumes and blasted lands, all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And a hunter, what he would do is he'd follow me around, right? And I didn't realize he could do this, but he would follow me around and he would be completely gearless, right? And he would run up to me and start hitting me. And if I rank 1 frostbolted him, he would immediately sapper and then dark rune. And then I got credit for his kill, and it was a full kill, and so it would unstack everyone. And so it was a very interesting dynamic that I have in Sunder, because I couldn't hit him. I literally could not hit him. So and that's kind of the same situation where you would then give the lobies the ultimate power over you, because someone 5 levels lower than you can kill you if you can't hit them, right? So that becomes kind of tricky, and especially with the way that AoE works, you would need an Ashes type system where you couldn't just auto flag on these people, right?
Yeah, no,
because
I get that.
or if they attacked you, that they would suddenly become legitimate fair game because they've engaged in a fight against you. Or if they attack you back at all, they can. Ashes does not want to incentivize one-sided fights at all, because you lose more if you die. If you're a lobby and you die, you lose more if you do not fight back.
But isn't Ashes creating a situation where kind of trying to get the best of both worlds, where you can create your own content by becoming that villain? And we've spoken on the show about how important villains are in MMOs, but also it is trying to create as level a playing field as it can and incentivize level on level PvP.
Yes, because they, in part, when you attack these people, if they don't attack back for whatever reason, say you like 2-shot them, right? They can't attack back, right? It's a lobby, you 2-shot them. Then you incur corruption, you drop your gear, right? And you also are easier to kill. I think that people are alerted to where you are. It's a whole bunch of stuff. But they also, the lobby that gets 1-shot loses more than they would if they had fought back in that system. And I think that's extremely important, because you want to incentivize the lobby to try and fight. You want them to try and fight. You want them to try and be with it, and they will lose less as a result. And yes, the person attacking them will lose less as a result as well. They'll lose basically nothing, right? So you have to play that game with them. Are they in an area where they don't belong? Okay, they're going to lose more from being in that area where they don't belong, because they're going to get 2-shot. If they're in a normal area, that's not going to happen to them. Right, but you want to create a system in which people don't just go, "Ooh, well, I'm just going to take the way out because I didn't consent to this PvP, and so you can't fuck with me because the system will punish you if I don't choose to engage in this fight." And that is partially true. It will punish the attacker, but it also punishes the person that's not willing to engage in the PvP. Right, and I think that's an important sort of give and take there, because it's like, okay, the guy who just gathers, and then if he were to lose less as a result for never fighting, you directly disincentivize him ever trying to fight.
Yeah, fair enough.
They don't do that in Ashes, where in WoW, if you were to introduce the thing that you were without any caveats, which is how you introduce it, which is why I'm attacking it.
That's fair. That's totally fair.
The incentives wouldn't line up. It would actually be fucked. Everyone would be, you'd have a legion of 55 twinks at world bosses.
Yeah. But this is the beauty of building games, mate. We build on it. I can see you've effectively plugged all the holes in my terrible take, but we're building an idea, baby. I've laid down some concrete. Let's put up some frames.
I agree. The spirit of the idea is righteous, right? Like, make it so that when you kill those players, don't give them a dishonorable kill, right? But put a fucking bounty on that motherfucker's head.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Have him drop his gear. Have him drop his honor. Let him be dishonored. right? That way, you collect the bounty, he loses honor as a result of doing the thing that he
There
did.
needs to be
Have it be interesting and immersive and cool and dynamic and fun.
There needs to be some form of penalty, and penalty, I use the word very loosely, some form of penalty for ganking lobbies. Some form of system change that makes you think about it before you do it.
I think emergent penalties. I think that's the thing. Like make it so that it's harder for these players to do what they want, right? Make it so that when you do that, pull from ashes, right? Which pulled from lineage, right? Make it so that now when they go about doing what they're going to do, they have to really think about if they're going to kill this lobby because if they do, they'll drop some of their gear or some of the stuff they have in their inventory, or their potions, or lose honor or something else as a result of incurring a kill on a lobby. I don't think it should be immediate. I don't think it should be, oh, you've been directly punished for this, because there can be good reasons, and you should never rob them of agency. What if this lobby is maxed professions and is stealing rich thorium veins? You're going to have them be unkillable? No. True. That's ridiculous, right? There are so many ways of skirting around those problems. You'd have to completely rebuild the game unless the punishment is emergent and the system itself makes sense, and it's been built on the idea that there is reasons to kill lobbies, because there are. Right?
Let me ask this, mate. I won't let you off the hook. We'll come back to your Warlock suggestion that we never actually got. What would you do with the Warlock summons?
I would just make it so that you get summoned at a much later level. I think you should get summoned at level fucking 60.
Oh, okay. Right. So basically you can't summon people to outside a dungeon in the early dungeons.
Yeah. I mean, I would just greatly restrict the amount of summons available. I would do the Netherstorm treatment for a lot of things. I think that it doesn't, like, maybe like 5-man, so you completely unrestrict it. And so it's like in dungeons, let people summon people. Like, let people summon people in dungeons, but 2 raids.
It's a great point to raise, because this came up in the Discord the other day when I was talking about how I'm anti-summoning stones. Someone pointed out, but Josh, like, you might as well have summoning stones because we have Warlock summons. And I was like, yeah, I get what you're saying, but at least with the Warlock summon, you need 3 people instead of 2. And but I don't like Warlock summons either. Like, no one should be getting a free ticket to the dungeon. Number 1, it takes away from the world PvP, like I've said. And then number 2, I fucking hate the laziness and bullshit it begins to create in the community when there's always those guys that never fucking move a muscle to go to the dungeon.
I'm with that, actually. Remove Warlocks, or at least their portals. Just remove them. Like, remove them entirely. You'd keep mage portals, of course. Just obviously you'd keep
if not portals. Buff, but, give them more portals.
Summoning, definitely, because realistically, it's just like a surrogate for a Hearthstone, right? Like, ultimately, let's be real, it's a surrogate for a Hearthstone. It's not that big of a deal. But the summons themselves, maybe it should have a long cooldown, right? Maybe it should have like an hour-long cooldown or something. Like, you can summon one person, they have an hour. It should be restricted in a way where it becomes less abusable and less practical for people to go around and skirt these problems. Because maybe one person, it's fine. Maybe if it has a 10-minute cooldown and it's like, okay, well, it's going to take 10 minutes to get here. We can summon one person, but yeah, the other guy has to get here. So you can't just, you can't just always skirt it. You can't have people summoning you to raids all the time. I just said, okay, yeah, let people summon into 5-mans. Definitely don't let people summon into 5-mans, because then you can't prevent movement ever, and you restricting player choice there because they have to do it outside of the instance, and you can PvP them outside the instance, right? So I think those kinds of dynamics are very important.
Let me throw one out there that I want to get your take on, that we lightly discussed the other day and had a bit of a laugh with Tim Jones about. I am concerned about, I mean, granted, we know nothing again of what, if SOM 2 is even a thing and what the rollout's going to be, but I am concerned that faction balance is going to be an issue and everyone rolls alliance. Everyone says SOM 1 was so alliance dominated, it was ridiculous. If we have the game roll out in a relatively similar state to what vanilla WoW is, we're kind of asking future seasons to just be alliance dominated. I would prefer to avoid that. I am trying to think of ways in which to, fucking get people to want to pick both. Obviously, people are like, raiding paladins, like, go with the faction that has the paladins, blah, blah, blah. Like, Wind Fury isn't enough to overcome what the paladin brings or whatever. But, like, we were joking about the shaman tank, and I was like, yeah, fucking at the end of the day, you think about it, and like, I don't know why this never dawned on me, even though everyone knows it. I'm like, the Alliance literally get an extra tank, and the Horde don't have that. And I'm like, do you ever consider like doing something as wild as making the Shaman a tank? Tell me in very quickly whether you think that's a fucking silly idea or not.
I don't think it would change much, to be honest. But maybe it would, because maybe it's just like new shiny thing, right? Maybe that would be enough if Horde get new shiny thing to make them play. I don't know the solution to the Alliance problem. I'll be honest.
Yeah, what would it be?
Yeah,
Can I just butt
I don't
in?
think that's even enough.
I'll add this to for a bit of flavor. It's something that has haunted private servers over the years, obviously, as well. And mate, you're a private server player. You fucking know the drill. And people, whether they're shocked or not, like
a private server.
I was like, yeah, I'm far more plugged into the private server scene than people seem to realize. People are always like, oh, Josh, did you know about this server? Like, yes, I know about it. There's so many servers over the years that have struggled with this. How the fuck do we get people to play Alliance? Question, whether they're doing vanilla or TBC. There's a server, coming up soon that's wrestling with the same question, and people have sort of had words with the way in which they've dealt with it, because they felt they've gone too far with like, the Alliance can have dual spec and the Horde can't. This is in a TBC server. The Alliance can have fucking 3 times experience boost. The Alliance, sorry, I think everyone gets that. The Alliance can have, I'm naming what they're giving to everyone.
It's like free epic mounts typically.
I fucked this up.
It's crazy shit.
They've named some crazy shit the Alliance will get, and people have said now everyone will just go Alliance. Like, you've tipped it too far the other way.
Yeah, it's challenging. It's really challenging, especially because you have the dynamic changes in TBC, right? So like everyone wants to be Alliance in vanilla, and then everyone wants to be Horde in TBC, at least in PvE. But then you have the balance. It's like, oh, okay, well, the racials and human, like perception's really strong, especially on classic perception was insanely strong. On humans, and that was very important for a rogue dominated meta. So yeah, I mean, it's complex. I don't really know of a solution to it. I think the real solution is just and I don't know how you ask this. I think you have to ask people to just not be shit and just try and balance themselves, or I don't know, like just like have limits on the servers themselves, maybe like limits on character creation.
Oh, I'm all for that. I always have been. Faction caps, yeah.
I don't know why that doesn't come to me sooner.
And I've always said, call it season.
Is an obvious answer.
Season of fuck your friends. We don't care if you can't play with your fucking friends. If some of the boys don't get on the server, fucking, we've got faction caps. Deal with it. You'll make new friends.
Well, or you'll go to another server where, right, like you can, right, like you can go to another faction. If you want to play with your friends, you can. It's just on the other faction.
The health of the server is more important than keeping guilds together,
or keeping you and your choice of faction intact. Because realistically, if you weren't first to that, and you were bandwagoning it, and people make it accessible for you to bandwagon, and it's a 2 faction system, it will always tip to 1. It just will. In competitive environments, it always will. You have to have a miraculous willingness, and I think you see this on pretty much only one server. I think there's only one server that I am at least familiar with. Maybe it happens on the Oceanic servers, but it's really only Grobulus that had players that were willing to put the health of their server ahead of their own victory. And I think that that's a thing that more people should be concerned with. It's part of the reason why I left some of the hardcore guilds that I was in vanilla. There were other problems too. Of course, there are other problems. But a big one is that they were more concerned with winning than they were with the server being in a good state. And so then you were less concerned with ultimately, well, why are you trying to win, right? You're trying to win because it's fun.
You're not soft dropping Ales Guild, are you?
No, not at all.
Hold on, Onslaught.
Onslaught definitely is one of these. I didn't play with Onslaught though. I played with Onslaught. I played with a reform of Onslaught at the beginning of TBC as a favor to people in that guild. To help them get NA first.
I'm just trying to fire Ale up. He just had a fit.
Yeah, no. That guild is probably one of the worst examples of it. absolutely atrocious behavior from pretty much everyone in the guild.
Especially Ale.
Where I don't know about Ale, but I will universally admonish with prejudice what they decided to do and how awful things they decided to do in reality were, because they didn't care about anything other than their own PvE environment, and that's, to me, disgusting. What they did and what the behaviors that they engaged with and the tactics.
He's going to write me the angriest DM now.
That destroyed Scarum, and they knowingly destroyed Scarum. Disgusting. I don't know if there's another word for it.
Ale, please forward all complaints courtesy of North.
No, I don't even think. I think Ale would ultimately. I think Ale probably now
you'd
would
think that.
agree
I
with
think
me.
he's been actually pretty tough on this one. I think he very much pushes back on that point. I think his point has always been, and Ale will let me know if I'm miscategorizing his arguments on this, but he's heard from multiple people over the years, obviously, that fucking Onslaught hunted the opposite faction to extinction. You guys were shitheads in PvP and made that place unlivable. Of course, the other factions, of course, they left, given what you were doing. And his pushback, I think, has always been, mate, you just couldn't hack it. If you weren't strong enough to survive that environment, then what do you want us to do? Just make it easy for you?
But in reality, that's such a shit take, because, not everyone's going to be at the same level, and you have to ultimately, we are creating ecosystems. You have to, in the same way that NVIDIA needed AMD to survive so that they didn't get destroyed by the federal government in the US, right? You should want the opposite faction to exist. You should want there to be healthy competition.
Yeah,
because ultimately it's going to make things less fun. Because you want to, it's just a longer term vision on it. Because the people that I played with, when I played with them, it was like, okay, well, why do you want to win? You want to win because it's fun. And then it's like, okay, well, and it's a challenge. So you winning against odds, et cetera, it's fun because it's a challenge. Okay, cool. You remove that ability as you one factionify a server, as it becomes more and more homogenous, more and more of a monolith. You destroy your ability to have that fun. You kill the competition, and in reality, you should be. And I actually think a guild that appreciates this a lot, and as much as it still exists in World of Warcraft and Classic now, is Fusion, ironically, who I didn't ever particularly love as a guild. But they make a big show. They stream their private server. They stream their PTRing. They stream their tactics. They stream everything, because they don't care more about winning than they care about having fun, which I have a deep and immense respect for. I think people who appreciate that the game is for fun, right? Be good if that's what's fun, but don't sap everyone else. You are a steward. Act like one, right? If you run a server, you are a steward of that server. You are responsible for that server. And obviously it's easy to say because I was in guilds where we were on the opposite end of that. We were the dominated faction, not the dominant faction.
I was going to say, wait, you were in a guild that was shitheads as well, right?
Well, for sure. But, and there's a reason why I'm saying it's easy to, and I left this guild, especially when it went to a server where it wasn't the underdog, because when I was on Stalag, it was extremely horde favored. It was like 70-30 from like the third week, right? So when we fought back, when we farmed stuff, we were helping the alliance breathe, right? And so what we were doing, and obviously we got to have immense amounts of fun, and it fit into my sort of moral and ethical outlook on being a steward of the server, because we were protecting the alliance. And so they then have to do the hard thing, and you're asking them to do a shitty thing, which is don't fight back as much, or target it, or be very specific in how you fight it.
I'm a big proponent of pulling your punches if it means keeping the other faction there.
And you should, realistically. And we had the good fortune, realistically, of not needing to pull our punches because it was so favored to the opposite faction. And so we got to have, and I stand by this, I think that being a hardcore player on Stalag on launch for the first 2, 3, 4 months of Classic, prior to the exodus of Stalag in late December, early January, so I guess it was like 3 months, was the best experience for a hardcore player who liked the sort of Classic environment of any server on Earth. Because you got to be the hero. We were the heroes of the story. We were the main characters. We were, it was, these were the 40v 200s. These were the real, this was the 300 type shit. You got to be a hero. And when you were in phase 2 going around, only the elite of the elite could really do what we were doing, which was you had a group of 4 and you had waves of horde just coming at you. And it felt so immersive because realistically, it was wave after wave of, like just the dogs of the horde, and they were so bad, but there were so many of them, and so it really felt so alive in such a different way. And I don't think really any other server got to experience that, maybe other than Alliance on Skyrim. And I think Alliance and Skyrim didn't have the same sort of strata where Onslaught was much better than the Horde side of Stalag. So I think that even then it's not as good. I think the best experience you could have had was there for that specific niche, and it was brilliant, and it was amazing, and it completely destroyed the server. It consumed it, that conflict, and it was glorious and terrible, and it was awesome beyond belief.
Mate, I should drag us back to the season of mastery theme, but I loved every fucking second of what you just had to say there. I was on the edge of my seat. You just reminded me though, like we haven't discussed another elephant in the room. We're still being relatively generic, but that's all right. Hey, it happens. I mean, how do you feel about the TBCifying of vanilla via talents and whatnot? Like, do you feel like that's an answer, or do you feel like that's actually a bit of a weird thing to do?
I think it depends on the class. I think some classes need to be pruned when it comes to that. I think some of them have too much. Like, I think putting rogue in like a TBC talent would be like,
yeah,
a little psycho.
I keep
honestly,
actually.
It wouldn't be. And here's why it wouldn't be. Shadow Dance is not enough of a problem. Actually, no, Shadow Dance is enough of a problem. Would you think Shadow Dance in?
Isn't Shadow Dance Wrath?
Shadow Dance is Wrath. What
no, they get Shadow Step.
Is it just Shadow Step?
Yeah, I think so.
Shadow Step is fine. The problem with Rogue is when Garrote has a silence, is when Deadly Throw exists and when Cloak of Shadows exists. It's not actually the Shadow Step. So it honestly works. It does honestly work. I think that for most classes, Mage, it does not. You cannot give Mage a water elemental. That is absurd and insane. Absurd and insane. Dragon's Breath is not. Slow is also absurd and insane. So, like, some trees would have to be adjusted. Warrior is fine, I think. Yeah, Warrior's fine. Paladin's good. Paladin's fine. Druid, it's also fine. Maybe a bit too strong. I don't know. Yeah, I think most of them work fine. I think Mage. The one issue is like when you talk about bringing these classes a little more, making them a little more well-rounded. I don't think Mage gets more well-rounded with TBC talents. I think it just becomes a little stupid. It's just a little insane. So I think that you would run into issues with. I think maybe Warlock you'd have some issues with. I think Shadow Fury could be too strong. But maybe not. I don't know. It would be an interesting thing to see. I think it would be very hard to test. But yeah, I think it could solve some issues. What do you think about it?
Well, I like it. I mean, I personally think it's the easiest solution. And more importantly, I feel like the public is on side with it. There are far more comments than not voicing positivity towards just translating TBC talents over to a vanilla world, and everyone kind of does, and I'm with them, everyone kind of drools over the prospect of that amazing vanilla world that we keep gushing about with what your class becomes in TBC and the marriage of those two. I think it'd be really cool. I do, like you, I had the exact knee-jerk reaction that you had when I think about the prospect of world PvP with TBC talents in vanilla. I do immediately jump to rogues, even though I'm planning on playing a rogue in SOM 2. I do jump to the rogue and go like, oh, is it too powerful, the TBC version, if we transplant that to vanilla? But I mean, I just don't know. And like you say, maybe I've probably, you've probably won me over that it might not be much of an issue. Hey, let me just get Wacklow in here. Sorry, Wacklow, I didn't see that you had your hand raised. Let's see if you got a question for us. Wacklow's going to be on the show tomorrow talking some more customer service type stuff. But Wacklow, mate, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, how's it going, guys?
Good, man. What's going on?
Not much. I just heard the word mage and saw red. Why do you think that arcane would be broken? Do you think slow would be that good in vanilla?
I think slow is just toxic when it's used properly. Like, I just don't think it would be. Like, it makes a lot of situations really awkward in terms of just being as free cast as it is. So I think that if you have realistically, if you have a legion of mages and you properly execute on that, you can just slow like insane amounts of people with it. I mean, with FAP and how it exists, maybe it's not that big of a deal. I definitely don't think it's a bigger deal than Water Ellie. I think the two talents that stand out as extremely game breaking, whereas no other ones seem nearly this bad. It's Water Elemental and it's Shadow Fury. These are the only two things that I think would cause problems a little too heavily. And Shadow Fury might not even be it. It might just be Water Elemental, because Water Elemental is ranged Frost Nova is just too good.
Yeah. If I was going with Warlock one, I'd go with Felguard.
Felguard, in terms of being too powerful?
Yeah, I mean, maybe not in PvP, but Felguard is just pretty insane in terms of base damage. Like, you might see Felguard stack meta in MC and BWL if you put Felguard.
I think if anything, that would be interesting to shake up the meta. Like, you creating more viable scenarios, like having Totem of Wrath is so interesting. Having Shamanistic Rage on Shaman seems very cool. Having Earth Shield on Shaman maybe could be too strong, but is kind of weak. Circle of Healing, Vampiric Touch, Pain Suppression, nothing crazy, pretty cool. Shadow Step, Surprise Attacks. Surprise Attacks honestly is pretty lame, but like it's it's good for PvE. And Mutilate, all cool. Mutilate might be a bit ridiculous. Who knows? But Crusader Strike being added, Avenger Shield, and Divine Illumination, all very good, all make a ton of sense. But then you get to the actually the Beast Within is up there.
Beast Within would be insane.
Beast Within would be so fucking annoying, actually.
If they do any sort of like instant small group PvP, Pain Suppression would also be absolutely busted in vanilla.
Pain Suppression would be very strong. I think that it's up there. I think that it's like around there with the Shadow Fury, with the slow. Like it's maybe a problem, maybe not a problem. Seems like it probably would be. Same thing with like Earth Shield. Earth Shield could be, but a lot of these are really reasonable.
I mean, like, Earth Shield is purgeable. Like,
yeah, fair. I'm more talking about PvE. It could be a little, but
and PvE.
Honestly, who cares about PvE?
Yeah, I mean, PvE is kind of
honestly who gives a flying fuck about PvE? Like it's not that big of a deal. I think UA honestly would be a little insane, right? Like you think about how it interacts with other problems, like, but it could also fix a lot of problems, right? Because the Dispel meta is so prevalent, right? So it could actually fix Affliction in ways that weren't possible prior. So it'd be really, and just having Vampiric Touch is so good for Shadow Priest. Vampiric Touch makes Shadow Priest so much more viable in PvE, and that would be brilliant. Circle of Healing makes Holy legitimately good, because Lightwell is ass, right? Like, and people just go for PI. So I think that a lot of these would do a lot of favors. It really is just a few. There's a few problem children. It's Water Ellie, it's Beast Within, it's Shadow Fury, it's Pain Suppression. I think that maybe tuning those abilities down or removing them altogether could be interesting or worthwhile. I don't know what you replace Water Ellie with, though. Like, I don't know what would you replace Water Ellie with? Maybe Ice Block. Maybe Ice Block, because Ice Block isn't in these talents. So you get Icy Veins. Give them Icy Veins, and then you kind of, if you want these talents, you kind of need Icy like Block to be baseline. So just give them. Just remove the middle talent from Frost, because Frost is usually strong anyway. Make the end talent Icy Veins. Right? Like, that could work. That would be strong, but it could work. It's no Water Ellie.
Yeah. Yeah, that would definitely be healthier in PvP. I'm just thinking about other stuff, like, you get wonky shit, like the int to spell power scaling with like ZG buffs, with like world buffs that give you multiplicatives on stats would be crazy in vanilla. A bunch of things just like modify TBC spells that you wouldn't want to port back into vanilla. So there'd be work to do. I'm just thinking there would be Mage. Like Mage alone, there'd be serious work to do beyond just the end talents.
I don't think there would be a lot, though. Most of it's not crazy. Like, there's very few things that are just TBC specific, I believe, other than some stuff in Arcane. Like, there's some things in Arcane that, and even then, I don't see anything that's outright specific to Arcane Blast. There really is nothing. So everything is still conserved from vanilla. The only thing is Arcane Impact seems a little worse, because it's mostly for Arcane Blast, but that's not like a deal breaker.
explosion,
Oh.
right?
Yeah, it's not an explosion, but explosion is like having crit chance
Yeah.
on explosion is huge. Like in vanilla, so it's like you're not even gonna feel bad about that as a talent. Also, most people don't even go into arcane for most shit, so it's like it's not. I guess for PvE, so and then you'd have an interesting, sort of strata between, okay, are you going arcane or are you going deep frost? Like, are you going for the icy veins? So I think it could be interesting.
Bob,
I
just
think you probably
quickly,
would go for the icy veins.
Baba Ganoush
Yeah,
raises
I
a
don't know.
really good.
Sorry, I know
Oh,
we're
sorry,
getting
you go,
too
Wacklow.
deep into mages, but there's other stuff like increased spell coefficient on fireball would be really loony on mages in the late game. Like, there'd be stuff to look at for
no, that's
sure.
true. That's actually 100% true. I hadn't considered that. It would definitely need a lot of work, which is why it won't happen. I don't think realistically because they just don't have the manpower to go through this. Josh, remind me to. I'm gonna type something to you because I don't
Yep.
want to. I don't want to say it on air.
Okay, one sec, I'll check.
Yeah, I would suspect that they would. I mean, like just rehauling talent trees in general. I imagine it would take the whole. It'd be a pretty Herculean effort to re-implement that. Obviously, they have the implementation there, but then they're changing those implementations in what is a very small team within a small team, right? So I think it would be ultimately that is as much as it's like ideal world. That feels like a bit of a pipe dream.
Let me ask you a funny one, Wacklow. I'll start with you on this one. And as much as I'm fucking loving the mage deep dive, you guys were kicking ass there. But just to jump in, because Baba Ganoush asked a really good question in chat, which I have thought about, but I've not sort of had the wherewithal to bring it up on a podcast discussion yet. Granted, I believe it's not a talent; it's just something you learn at 70. But I mean, I don't even know how I feel about this. How do you feel about lust/heroism being transported as well? Yay or nay, Wacklow?
Like horde exclusive lust.
No, yeah, sorry, you're right. Fuck, I'm operating in a everyone's got shaman world. God, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's an easy question. I think that if the Alliance don't have shaman, then they shouldn't get lust. But like, if for whatever reason the Alliance, I don't know. Let me say this much. I think it's cool leaving it as Alliance get Paladins and Horde get Shaman. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not really fussed either way, but that's just a personal preference. If you did a world in which here's Som 2, both factions can do Paladins and Shaman, then do you think Lush should be a thing? It's a
I
tough
suppose
one.
as long as health pools are adjusted to compensate.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tough one.
Yeah.
Sorry to put you on the spot. North, what do you think?
I would. It's the same thing. Like if health pools were adjusted, like let's not make the PvE content even easier.
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
like
yeah.
that would be a tricky one that would require too much work. Again, ideal world, you have 500,000 people working on classic. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure, fuck it, throw it in.
How do you feel
It
about
feels good. It feels fun.
How do you feel about the Shaman Paladin thing?
I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I like that it's sort of like you have this sort of unique dynamic where it's like one class, one faction is this, the other faction is that. I don't know that it's the best thing, especially in like a TBC environment in terms of the talent choices. I think it maybe would make more sense to balance it, and this would help with faction balance. It would make it feel a little less unapproachable if you were specific about faction balance and then you gave both classes to both. But I think there is a sort of, I think the difference in experience and the reality that the experiences are different on Horde and Alliance, I think that's very compelling. And I think it's lessened by it being homogenous. So I don't actually know. I really would have to think through it. I would have to think
Fair
through
enough.
it. My gut
Fair
response is it probably would make more sense to just give everything to everyone, albeit in their sort of, race formats where, there are differences. You still have Devouring Plague versus Fear Ward, right? You still have these differences. And maybe you'd add more of that to Shaman and Paladin where they feel very different, but they provide much of the same. So you don't have this issue where it's like, okay, well, Horde doesn't have Bop, right? Like Horde doesn't have, Horde doesn't have Freedom, Horde doesn't have Kings, Horde doesn't have Salve, right? Maybe that's too much of an issue, but I really would need to put a lot of thought into that.
Yeah, I feel actually
I think it's
pretty
complicated.
Yeah, I feel pretty strongly that even though it's not like my ideal version of the game, the only way you're going to have any sort of faction balance is if Horde get Paladins. in some way, shape, or form. Because most people in this day and age are PvE players, and people have discovered that Paladin's just a lot better and a lot easier to have.
Yeah, and I'm like, if it's something like we've talked about earlier, if it's something that's seriously going to help the health of the server, then I'm not going to flip a table over that fucking the Horde have Paladins, the Alliance have Shaman, and
I agree with that.
Yeah,
it kind of has to happen if you want it to be good without a lot of intervention. And Blizzard has shown that they're not willing to put the intervention in. Because ultimately someone has to suffer down the line, right? More people want to play Alliance. Even if you kick the bucket down, you say, you have to have it balance in this server. Eventually going to get to a server where it's going to be all Alliance because there's just an overflow, right? Or people won't play, and they don't want to create a situation in which people don't want to play. The better solution is to balance it, ultimately.
Baba Ganoush says, just make with the Rend buff Horde only. Then you'd get some fucking more Horde players. Is that
I think you'd get like very high-end speedrunners maybe going Horde. Although I don't know. They'd have to crank the math on which is better.
Guys, we'll start to wind it up there. Wacklow, mate, was there anything else you were dying to ask or say before we sign off?
You think you cut out or I cut out?
Yeah, I think Josh cut out, but
sorry, I'll say again. Yeah, anything you want to say before we go?
You're putting the cane on stage and yanking me off.
Oh, no, I was saying all of us. I'm yanking all of us off.
Oh, okay.
So I was just saying, is there anything like before we all go? Is there anything else that you were dying to ask that you heard earlier, or that you really want to say before we go?
No, not really. Thanks for letting me hop in, and I'll talk to you very soon.
Yeah, my pleasure, mate. We've got you again in 2 days doing another deep dive on some of the more negative issues that we didn't really want to go too deep in with North today. Thanks, mate. We'll talk to you soon. Look, North, buddy, I think you've got a GDKP coming up, and I don't want to keep you all night. Mate, this has been fun. This has been a blast. I am really looking forward to doing more SOM content if a server does get announced. I'm having fun with the speculation. We'll just wait and see what happens. But yeah, in the meantime, I mean, I'm still doing shit. Like I said, I'm being a fucking serial pest in Era. The rogue lifestyle is a weird one that I'm coming to grips with.
It's fun. It's fun. It's fucking fun.
It is fun.
The pacing to it is slow and very immersive, and I think it's extremely compelling.
It's very fun, but it really pushes the boundaries for me on like compelling me to be a cunt. and I'm not sure how comfortable I am with it. Like I said, I'll give you a quick story. Like, and I'm, kind of apologies, not really to anyone who's listening who these stories apply to, but like, I know it's a fool's folly of mine to think that I'm going to eradicate lobby ganking or, unethical PvP from the game. I know it's never going to go away, but like, I'm the dickhead who I've gotten in like multiple fights with people in the game over the last 48 hours because I'm a fuckwit. Because I've seen other rogues. Like I said, I'm just patrolling Duskwood at level 23. I have no abilities, just trying to find a fair fight and do my thing. Actually, more often than it's not a fair fight. I'm 23 and I'm often fighting 28s and 29s. I don't give a fuck. I'm having fun. I don't care if I lose. I don't think I have a smaller penis if I lose. It really doesn't bother me. But I've seen a couple of rogues doing the same thing I'm doing, Horde rogues haunting Duskwood and popping off people at 5 and 10% health when they're drinking after a mob. And I whisper that person and say, you're a fucking loser. And you can imagine that they don't take particularly kindly to that kind of, yeah. So I've gotten into it with a couple of guys over the last 48 hours and just been like, you're a fucking piece of shit, but like people would say,
Josh,
hey man, that's
one
how
of
I can
the
play
good
the game.
Rogues.
Yeah. Huh. But like, I don't know. It's such a weird class. It really is. It just lets you be so bad.
Yeah, it does. It's a funny thing. It's a definitely very different dynamic from the other classes, but it is extremely interesting and very cool.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah, I'll let you go, mate. Look,
going,
you get going. Actually, I'll talk to you off stream for 3 seconds. But guys, we'll end this one. We love you all. We'll talk to you later. Have a good one. You can find North at all the usual places. We love you guys. Speak to you later. All right, give me 1 second, mate. In stream.
Of course.